This is Retro Sports Radio. Visit RetroSeasons.com for more sports history.
On May 18, 1971, the Montreal Canadiens faced the Chicago Blackhawks for Game 7 of the 1971 Stanley Cup Finals. Claude Roule was hired to coach Montreal in 1968, replacing the legendary Toe Blake. He started the 1971 campaign as well, but decided to step down 23 games into the season because the pressure of life behind the bench was affecting his health. So assistant coach MacNeil took the helm for the rest of the season. The Habs stunned the heavily favored Boston Bruins in the opening round of the playoffs, and then defeated the Minnesota North Stars in order to advance to the Stanley Cup Finals against the Blackhawks. Chicago was coached by Billy Reay and were looking to win their first Stanley Cup since 1961. They had been eliminated during the semifinals in 6 of the previous 9 seasons. Chicago started the season well with a record of 18-4-5 in the first 27 games. The Hawks stayed hot throughout the season and easily won the West Division with a club record 49 victories and 107 points, finishing 20 points ahead of the second-place St. Louis Blues. The Hawks were led by Bobby Hull, who scored a team-high 44 goals and 52 assists for 96 points, which placed him 5th in scoring in the NHL. This audio recording is from the Chicago radio broadcast featuring announcers Lloyd Pettit and Harvey Wittenberg.
We pause 5 seconds for station identification.
This is WMAQ Chicago, the home of Kurt Russell from 6 to 10 every morning.
So, as has been said in many previous Stanley Cup competitions, there is no tomorrow for these clubs. This will be the final game no matter what happens. And, of course, someone was kidding a little bit ago, said, well, what happens if it goes into overtime? Then sudden death overtime, and someone also kidded by saying, and what would happen if it turned out to be a 12-day overtime? Well, I think, Harvey, if that happened, if it turned out to be a 12-day overtime, all of us, including all the players and the coaches, probably would be dead by the time that was over.
Well, what they do is just declare it a tie and then start at best of 7 all over again.
Well, I'll tell you, Harvey, we've had a lot of excitement, a lot of hockey throughout the season, and moving into the Stanley Cup competition, more and more thrills. We pointed a little bit ago back to the New York series, the semifinal series between the Hawks and the Rangers, and at that time we said that that was one of the greatest series we had ever seen in Stanley Cup competition. But you certainly can't knock the caliber of hockey we've seen between the Hawks and the Canadiens in the final series.
It's just been amazing, Lloyd, the way these players have gone through these 3 playoff series. We battled the Canadiens during the regular season on even terms. Each team won 3, and here we are 3-3 in a deciding game. And you couldn't ask for any more action and excitement than we've got sitting before us tonight.
And we'll be back with the start of the first period action right after this. See Skill Power Tools at Root Brothers and see why nobody was ever sorry he bought the best there is. Skill at Root Brothers, 10317 South Michigan, Chicago. The officials on the ice headed out by John Ashley, the referee, the linesman Matt Pavlich, and John D'Amico and Harvey. John Ashley, as usual, did not receive a warm welcome.
Well, the fans right now are chanting Ashley's a bum, referring perhaps to that game number 3 in the Stanley Cup Finals, where we had the lead 2-0 and the Canadiens defeated us 4-2, and a lot of the fans were up in arms over that. But, we had a conversation with Neil Armstrong after the game in Montreal, and he said that as far as he's concerned, John's the best in the league. Neil is the veteran linesman in the NHL, did the longest time.
And here come the Hawks. At Chicago Stadium as the Chicago Blackhawks come on the ink, and more than 20,000 people jammed in this edifice, roaring and screaming their approval, not only of a tremendously successful hockey team, but perhaps expressing all the thanks and satisfaction to their athletes for one thrill after another throughout the 1977-71 season, no matter what happens here tonight. And of course, this again is a psychological factor with each member of the Chicago Blackhawks knowing that 99 9/10% of the people in Chicago Stadium are their backers.
fans are on their feet. I've got a bunch of signs talking to them. Hawks go, Hawks go. Hawks Stanley Cup champions, 1977-1. Whatever happens this game tonight, I know the fans are proud of the Blackhawks and the fine job and the great show and great job they've done all season.
And the positions on the ice. Ken Dryden will be in the nets for the Canadiens to our left. And Tony Esposito for the Blackhawks in the nets to our right. And the Canadiens, therefore, will be moving from our left to our right, and of course the Chicago Blackhawks in the opposite direction. The Canadiens' uniforms, their traveling uniforms, basically the red jerseys, the blue pants, the white numerals, and the red, white, and blue striped stockings. The Chicago Blackhawks in their home uniforms, basically the white jerseys, the dark numerals, the black pants with the stripes down the side, and the red, black, and white striped stockings. Taking their positions at their respective blue lines now and facing Old Glory off to our right. And the officials also in position at center ice. John Ashley, the referee, the linesman Matt Pavlich, and John D'Amico. And now, ladies and gentlemen, from a very hot, a very sticky but excited Chicago Stadium, our national anthem. And our national anthem. Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the rampart we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave? So this literally will be a game that will be heard around the world. Armed Forces Radio, the entire United States, sent from coast to coast in Canada, radio, television, newspaper writers from all around the world reporting this, the final game. Bellamo and Nikita ready for the opening face-off and the draw taken by the Canadiens. Back into the Canadiens out on the point to the far side of the blue line left hand. Billy Reay dumps it into the Hawk zone. And off the backboard and off the back of the Hawk cage, poked at by Cournoyer, but off the near board of the Chicago zone, and Dennis Hull digs it out to center ice. And takes a long shot that's wide to the right, off the far corner, taken by Mahavlich, and he leads it past Bill White, all the way down the length of the ice into the Hawk zone. Stapleton is there to touch it, and it's an icing call against the Montreal Canadiens.
This broadcast is by the authority of the Blackhawk properties. Any use of description or play-by-play without the consent of the Blackhawk properties is prohibited.
Stan Nikita, winged on the left by Dennis Hull, on the right by Eric Nesterenko. The two backmen, Bill White and Pat Stapleton. Nikita facing off with Bellamo to the left. Up Ken Dryden on the draw to the Canadiens. LaPointe to his blue line. Out to center ice to the center line and dumping a long shot past Esposito. Off the backboard, the stick of Nesterenko. Wheels around to the far corner, leads it ahead of Nikita off the far board, over left. Out to center ice, dumped back into the Hawk zone by LaPerriere to Stapleton. And the pass out by Stapleton, intercepted by Cournoyer. Dropping it back to Bellamo. And Bellamo out in front. The backhander by Cournoyer is wide and into the near corner. Picked up by Nikita. Off the near board, Dennis Hull to the far side, out to center ice, right in front of the Hawk net. Frank Mahavlich to Bellamo, and Bellamo tips it down into the Hawk zone. Near corner, Cournoyer and Dennis Hull behind the net as Dennis Hull slips, falls down, and the puck, the whistle blows, will have a face-off in the Hawk zone.
Get power to clean with power to burn. Add a can of new STP double-power gasoline treatment. You'll really feel the difference.
Just 1 minute into the action here at Chicago Stadium. There have been a couple of flurries on the part of both clubs, but neither goaltender has yet been sorely tested. Good ice position for the Canadiens in the Blackhawks zone. The face-off in the face-off circle to the left of Tony Esposito. Chico Mackey is in position for that face-off, and his opposition will be Pete Mahavlich. Pete Mahavlich and Chico Mackey ready for the face-off, and the draw into the slot, but back to the blue line. Here's a quick shot, and a save by Esposito as it rebounds off the near board of the Hawk zone, and Bobby Hull breaks up the play and picks up the puck. Goes to the side of the net and off the backboard, leads it ahead to Chico Mackey on the left wing, and Chico trying to lead it out. It comes right back to him. That is blue line. Nice move, moves it out to center ice to the center line. Chico Mackey to the blue line. He's spun around to the left wing, and we have our first penalty coming up. A call against the Montreal Canadiens. Harper for holding. And we'll be back with more in a moment. First break of the game goes to the Blackhawks.
We'll get a power play opportunity, and we hope we can click on it with a face-off in the Montreal zone.
Harper in the penalty box for holding. The draw to Bobby Hull, throws to the far corner. Around behind the net. LaPointe is there. Shoves it ahead around the near corner off the near board. And Pitt Martin digs and it's thrown out to center ice and poked away. At the center line, Mahavlich. He's checked by Stapleton. But Mahavlich dumps it into the Hawk zone and Bobby Hull retreats. Off the backboard. Checked by Pete Mahavlich. He leaves it for Pitt Martin. Martin overskates it, has to retreat it to the Hawk backboard, and Bobby Hull behind the net coming out on the left side. Leads ahead to Chico Mackey. Off the near board. Chico out to center ice to Papin to Martin. Martin at the blue line loses control of the puck, and it's thrown back into the Hawk zone, over the near board, and into the Chicago crowd. 1 minute and 25 seconds left on the penalty.
It's Sukasa for exciting Mexican food, refreshments, and entertainment. That's Sukasa, 49 East Ontario. I have a hunch, and I know John Ashley is going to call a very tight hockey game tonight, a very close game. Anything that comes close to a penalty, I think he's going to call it tonight.
Chico Mackey, Pitt Martin, Bobby Hull, Jim Papin, Pat Stapleton on the ice for Chicago. Possession to the Blackhawks. Stapleton from center ice, dumping it around the near corner. Behind the net, stopped by Dryden. Dryden leaves it behind the net. It goes to the far board, and Frank Mahavlich. Mahavlich leaves it to Pete Mahavlich. Off the far board, still in the Canadian zone, stolen by Bobby Hull. Brings it out to center ice to Chico Mackey. Mackey on the left wing, moves it out in, but the whistle blows for an offside play. One of the Hawks, I believe, Jimmy Papin, was unable to clear in time.
Well, it looks like both teams are playing it very cautious, even on this Hawk power play. They want to make sure that they've got control of the puck. They move it into the Canadian zone without getting a straight pass go, so the Canadians might have a breakaway.
You can be over-enthusiastic on a power play opportunity and leave yourselves wide open to a one-on-one or two-on-one breakaway. To the Canadian zone, Martin taking the shot and deflected away just as he got it underway, but the whistle had blown for the offside play. And ladies and gentlemen, you are going to please allow us to continue with play-by-play, even though there have been offside plays, because it is very difficult in the roaring of the crowd at Chicago Stadium to hear the linesman whistle. So that was an offside play at the Canadian blue line. The face-off on the far side of the rink. Stan Mikita will be ready for the face-off against Pete Mahavlich. 1 minute left on the penalty of the Hawks power play. No score in the game. Just underway. A couple minutes gone. 2 minutes and 27 seconds. And we have another whistle on the ice and another face-off. And some basic mistakes being made on the ice, Harvey, have broken the flow of the hockey game early.
Well, they're eager, and they just want to make sure they've got control of that puck. And Dennis fired it in the Canadian zone, but it went up over the glass.
And the face-off at center ice, draw back to the Canadian zone, and LaPointe with a long shot the length of the rink, and taken by Esposito, drops it off to Stapleton, and Stapleton behind the net, coming out on the right side. Power play hockey for Chicago. Whitey to the blue line. Leading to the center line is Dennis Hull over the blue line on the left wing. His shot is wide, goes into the far corner, and Cliff Coral pokes at it around behind the net. It gets away from Mikita all the way into the near corner. Picked up by Mahavlich. Back to the near point. Stapleton keeps it in. Fought for on the near board, but now out to center ice again, and Cliff Coral. Coral moving toward the far board, throws it down into the Canadian zone. Less than 30 seconds to go on the penalty, and the Chicago Blackhawks have yet to threaten Dryden. Now Stapleton leading off the near board to Mikita. Bounces off of his stick. Mikita throws it behind the net to the far corner of the Canadian zone. Cliff Coral centering in front of Dennis Hull. Tried the tip in, but it was deflected away and cleared the length of the ice onto the stick of Tony Esposito. The penalty is almost up. Terry Harper standing in the penalty boxes. The Hawks come roaring back, led by Bobby Hull. Checked at center ice. Off the near board, and Harper comes out on the ice. The puck in the Canadian zone and cleared behind the net by Dryden. To the far board as the teams are back at equal strength. Mikita into the near corner to Coral. Coral off the backboard, centering it out in front, and deflected and intercepted now by Mahavlich. Pete Mahavlich to center ice, moving to the center line, checked from the side by Coro. Moves over the Hawk blue line on the left wing, trying to beat Bobby Hull, and Bobby Hull checks him into the far corner. Mahavlich centers it, poked away by Esposito up the corner of the crease. A bouncing puck out to center ice, and Chris Coro one-on-one on the left wing, wheeling around. Coro centering, but it's deflected away by J.C. Tremblay. Now picked up in the near corner by Dennis Hull. He centers it, goes all the way through to the far board, and Jacques Lemaire dumps it off the near board, and it rebounds into the Hawk zone, and Jarrett out to center ice to Richard. Richard intercepting, moving into the right wing. A shot and a save by Esposito when he reaches out and he holds on as Magnuson and Lemaire do a little shoving, a little pushing with each other. Magnuson and Jacques Lemaire off to the left of Tony Esposito. After Tony had made the save, it looks like both of them are going to go. And Harvey, you were right. It looks like Ashley's going to call a tight game.
Certainly is, and both teams will be equal strength and a man short.
And we'll be back with more in just a moment. Both Lemaire and Keith Magnuson go for roughing at 4:09 of the first period. So that's the third penalty, the second and third penalties called in the first period, and no score. A little more ice on which to skate at Chicago Stadium now, both clubs down by a man. Good ice position for the Canadiens in the Hawk zone. The face-off and the draw goes to Doug Jarrett off the stick of Pitt Martin. Now led off the far board of the Canadian, the Chicago zone to Jimmy Pappen right in front, and almost stolen away right in front of the Hawk net. And out to center ice comes Pitt Martin on the left wing over the blue line. And check from the side into the near corner. On it is Rochefort. His pass deflected up in the air by Pappen. And stolen away by J.C. Tremblay. He's checked solidly by Martin. And the puck thrown around the near corner. Taken off the near board by Richard. And leads out to center ice. LaPointe to the Hawk blue line, winding a slap shot and a save by Esposito, and Tony holds on.
Why buy a dull car when a full-size Pontiac is only $57 more than America's most popular lightweight car?
A pretty good slap shot by Guy LaPointe.
He let it fire just inside the blue line, and Canadians so far have had all long shots. And I think the plan of attack is, it's really warm in this building again tonight, Lloyd. It's been the last couple of games in Montreal, and they're just trying to waste their time for a good opportunity.
Face-off in the Hawk zone to the left of Esposito. Brought back to the near point of J.C. Tremblay. He pokes it off the near board. Taken by Henri Richard, skating toward the far board. Leads to the far board. LaPointe winding a slap shot. Deflected off the stick of Bill White. Now J.C. Tremblay leading it back to far point. LaPointe again broken up by Jarrett. The rebound off the near board and dumped down into the Hawk near corner. Martin is checked in the play by Henri Richard. Jarrett takes him out of it. Martin taken out of the play by Ray-Jean Houle. Now Martin tried to dig it off. Takes a solid check from Henri Richard, and Jarrett picks up the loose puck and throws it out to center ice off the far board. LaPointe putting it back into the Hawk zone. That's swept up into the air by Bill White and picked up and dropped back into the Hawk zone by Pappen to Jarrett. Jarrett returning to Pappen. Out to center ice. Pappen at the center line, stolen away by Henri Richard, and Richard with possession moves back to the blue line of the Canadiens. To the center line. 5.5 minutes gone in the first period, no score. Bobby Hull throws a solid check into Henri Richard on the far board, and the puck is deflected out to center ice. Now back into the Canadian zone of J.C. Tremblay. Near side to the far side of LaPointe. LaPointe to the center line, and Henri Richard to the Hawk blue line on the right wing. He takes a solid shot from Doug Jarrett. And the loose puck is picked up by Chico Mackey. A legal check in the judgment of John Ashley. Back comes Bobby Hull to the center line of the blue line. Moving down the middle. Bobby Hull trying to get his shot away. A beautiful save by Ken Dryden. Bobby could not get his wrist shot away. Dryden came out, spun around on his side, and Bobby then had to try the backhander, and Ken Dryden made a tremendous move, leaving his net open but able to grab the puck off the stick of Bobby Hull. Some kind of a play by Dryden, Harvey.
Certainly was. Bobby made the right move as he moved around the defense. Dryden came out to cut down Bobby's angle. He had nothing to shoot at, and Bobby whirled around and tried to whip in a backhander, but just as it was leaving his stick, Dryden grabbed it with his glove, his long reach, and hung on to take the Canadiens out of danger.
Less than 15 seconds to go on the penalties to Lemaire and Magnuson. Both clubs short a man. Face off in the Canadian zone. And to the right of the Canadian goaltender, the draw taken by Ray-Jean Houle goes behind the Canadian net. Looking out, left to right, comes out on the right side and drops it back. Picked up now and led out by LaPerriere, deflected by Bill White. It goes back into the Hawk zone off the far board, and Stapleton pokes it away from Houle out to center ice. Bill White can't hold it. The penalties are over, and the teams are back at full strength. Bobby Hull in the Hawk zone having control problems that the whistle has blown, and we'll have a face-off.
Bobby Hull having the best scoring opportunity of the game thus far, and Dryden made the save before Bobby could get a good shot away. But we're still early in the hockey game, a lot of action left. We've only played 6 minutes and about 20 seconds.
Teams at full strength. The penalty box is empty. Face-off outside the Hawk blue line on the far side of the rink. And the draw into the Hawk zone taken by Stapleton right in front of the Hawk net. Looks out, moves out. Slowly coming off to the near boards at the blue line. Leads ahead of the center line. Deflected away into the Canadian zone. LaPerriere. He throws it off the far board. Back into the Hawk zone. And Whitey Stapleton. Stapleton to Bobby Hull at the Hawk blue line. Led on the right wing. Intended for Cliff Coral. But poked away by LaPerriere. Back to the center line. And Bill White's pass is knocked back into the Hawk zone. And Chico Mackey in the far corner. Goes behind the net. Drops it behind the net for Stapleton in the far corner now, and he leads it ahead to Cliff Coral. Off the far board, center ice play for Chico Mackey. Chico to the blue line, trying to drop it back to Bobby Hull. Can't do it. Comes right back to him. Chico Mackey with a shot wide to the left side. And off the far board. Bill White wanting to center. He does. It comes all the way through to the near point at Stapleton. Stapleton winding. A slap shot and a save by Dryden. And picked up by the Canadiens. And out to center ice. Big John Ferguson to the Hawk blue line. Poke check by Stapleton. Loose puck picked up by Bill White. Carries it behind the net, throws it to the far board, and Chico Mackey trying to throw it out to center ice, can't do it, comes right back to him. At the Hawk blue line, now Bill White out to the center line, and Bill White a long shot, and tipped away by Dryden over the glass in the near corner, and somebody has a souvenir. We'll be back with more in a moment. From the face-off, the Canadiens came on, and Tony Esposito made a fine save. Back come the Hawks. Makita over the blue line on the right wing, carries into the far corner. His shot grabbed by Dryden, and Dryden in the crease holds on. And standing off the corner of that crease was Dennis Hall, and swinging around out of the near corner was Eric Nestorenko looking for the rebound, but Dryden would not even let them have a look at it. Coming up to the 8-minute mark in the first period, no score.
Mahavlich having the best opportunity for the Canadiens, but Tony made the stop as he was barreling in on left wing.
Draw in the Canadian zone. We have a false face-off. That will do it again. Makita, Dennis Hall, Eric Nestorenko. Front line for Chicago. Back line, Magnuson and Doug Jarrett. Face-off to the left of Ken Dryden. The draw to Dennis Hall. Dennis Hall couldn't get his shot away from the slot. And we have a tripping penalty coming up against Chicago. Dennis Hall will go for tripping, and he's hot about it. We'll be back with more from Chicago Stadium after this. The power play team for the Canadiens. The draw back to center ice. And from the center line, Mahavlich dumps it into the Chicago zone around the far corner and behind the net and Stapleton. Stapleton off the near board. Out to Bobby Hull. Can't hold it. Deflected off of his stick, but Bobby regains and Bobby clears. Now the Canadiens from their own zone, led by Pete Mahavlich, slowly to the blue line, to the center line, dumping it into the Hawk zone, off the near corner. Out comes Esposito, and Tony Esposito gives somebody a souvenir by clearing it over the glass on the near side. One minute and 30 seconds left on the tripping call to Dennis Hall as the Chicago Blackhawks making a change or two. Chico Mackey goes to the bench. And Stan Makita coming onto the ice to do the facing off deep in the Chicago zone to the left of Tony Esposito. Makita will face the captain of the Canadiens, Big Jean Beliveau. And the draw right in front, but deflected away and taken by Stapleton. And Stapleton moves it out. The Hawks coming on 3-on-2. Bobby Hull on the left wing leading in front. Makita shot and a save by Dryden. Another great save by the Canadian goaltender, beating Makita from about 4 feet away. Back come the Canadiens. Intercepted by Stan Makita. Makita leads to Stapleton. Off the near board to Bobby Hull. Out to center ice. Overskated as he was checked by Cournoyer. But now Stapleton picks it up. Over the blue line. A slap shot is wide. To the right side. Off the far board and Mahavlich. Frank Mahavlich moving it out to the blue line. To the center line. Mahavlich leads to the Hawk blue line. The play broken by Chico Mackey and cleared out by Chico Mackey. We have played 9 minutes of the first period and we have no score. Canadiens right now, power play hockey, 45 seconds left in the Chicago penalty. Carried into the Hawks zone by LaPointe. Checked away by Bobby Hull. Loose puck to Chico Mackey, and Chico Mackey can't clear it. And picking it up, LaPointe. LaPointe with a shot and grabbed by Esposito. It would have been off the mark, but he reached out to his right and grabbed hold of a flying puck anyhow.
It was a good move by Tony. There were 3 Canadiens all around that net, Lloyd. One right in front and one on either side. And if Tony hadn't grabbed that puck, there might have been a Canadian to bang it in.
So 35 seconds left on the penalty. Blackhawks shorthanded for the first time in the game. The Hawks have had 1 power play opportunity. That came early at 1:22, and Harper went for holding. But with the score 0-0, obviously the Hawks were unsuccessful with power play opportunity. Again, good ice position for the Montreal Canadiens. The face-off will take place to the right of Tony Esposito. Makita on the ice to do the facing off now against Jacques Lemaire. And the face-off in the Hawk zone, taken by Nikita, and Nikita clears the length of the ice. Onto the stick of Dryden. Out of his crease to the right side and picked up by J.C. Tremblay. Tremblay moving it out of the Canadian zone now. To his blue line, slowly to the center line, deflected into the Hawk zone, onto the stick of Esposito, and again, Tony Esposito covers up as Hull and Jacques Lemaire were right there looking for a loose puck. Lou Angotti on the ice for the first time. You heard the Lulus. Those weren't boos. Lou has developed a great amount of popularity here, Harvey.
Certainly has, and it's been well-deserved. He's been a real fire plug for our Blackhawks in a lot of key games. He got that winning draw in the 7th and deciding game against the Rangers, and got the winning goals in the game number 2 here against the Canadiens.
15 seconds left in the penalty, and the face-off again in the Chicago zone. Lemaire and Makita, the draw to the foul board, and Bobby Hull. He clears the puck. So the Canadiens thus far have had a couple of chances against the Chicago Blackhawks' Tony Esposito, but the penalty killers have pretty well done their job. To the center line, led to the Hawk blue line on the right wing, and poked away by Stapleton as Whitey Stapleton clears for Chicago. The penalty is almost over. Dennis Hull is now back on the ice, and the penalty killers for Chicago doing a beautiful job. Eric Nesterenko trying to steal the puck in the Canadian zone. Was checked away by Guy Lapointe. And possession to the Canadiens. Off the near board, Rajon Hull still inside his zone. Leads it out to center ice. Guy Lapointe at the blue line. A shot and a save by Esposito. Deflected over the glass behind him. We pause 5 seconds for station identification.
This is WMAQ Chicago, where you hear Pat Sheridan from 10 to 2 every day.
We have played 10 minutes and 13 seconds of the first period. We have no score at Chicago Stadium. The 7th and final competition between the Canadiens and the Blackhawks to determine which club will be the professional champions of 1970-71 and Stanley Cup champions of 1971. In the Hawk zone, far corner, Martin trying to poke it away from Tardif. He does to Pappen. Pappen leaves it out to center ice to O'Shea. O'Shea gets by one man, dumps the puck into the Canadian zone, but Dryden is out to clear it into the near corner. And off the near board, dumped out to center ice, intercepted by Jarrett. Jarrett drops it back into the Hawk zone, away from Magnuson. He has to go to the far board and gets it out to Pappen, out to center ice, and Martin. He can't hold it, checked by Tardif off the far board, but Martin regains. Martin to the center line. Martin leading it into the left wing, and off the near board, O'Shea digs for it along with Rochefort. And Rochefort picks up the puck on the near board. Fought for by 3 or 4 players and whistled dead by John Ashley.
Coach Billy Reay, in an attempt to get the best defensive men on the top Canadian men, has shook up his lines again tonight. He's put Nesterenko on the Makita line, and he's put Coral on with Bobby Hull and Chico Mackey.
And the face-off in the Canadian zone for a change is poked to the far side, and out come the Canadiens to center ice. Richard to the blue line, dumping it into the Hawk zone, and picking it up is O'Shea off the far board, behind the net to the far corner, and led out on the deflection, past the blue line and out to center ice. The Canadiens again possess. Harper leading it into the Hawk zone, off the skate of Jarrett, into the near corner, picked up by Magnuson, and Magnuson is checked from the rear and put down in the far corner. Tardif wants to center in front, and a shot by Richard comes through the crease all the way to the near board, and picked up by Jimmy Pappen. Pappen leading out to center ice to Martin. Martin 1-on-2, can't control the puck, and Henri Richard intercepts. Leading it back into his own zone. Now he throws to LaPerriere. LaPerriere's lead to Richard is tipped down into the Hawk zone. Out of the net comes Esposito to poke it off the near board. And Richard digs for it. Richard wants to center. Broken up and stolen by Martin. Martin behind the net on the right side. Throws it out to Pappen under his stick. And out to center ice and LaPerriere. Now to Martin at the Hawk blue line on the far side of the rink. The whistle blows. We'll have a face-off. We'll be back with more in a moment. Back to the point of Stapleton. He bats it up in the air, but intercepted by Lapointe, and he throws it out to center ice. And the lead down into the Hawk zone. Cournoyer was way offside on the right wing. I guess you could call the game, as far as the overall picture at the moment, Harvey, has been rather positional.
Both teams have been cautious, waiting for a good opening, and Hawks have had come close on a couple good opportunities of getting some real good shots away, but the Canadiens have been able to get their sticks on it.
And from the face-off at center ice to Bill White of the Hawks zone to the near side at the blue line of the Hawks. Out to center ice, and Stapleton didn't get all the puck on his pass, and because of that, it slowed the play and creates an offside at the blue line of the Montreal Canadiens. Nikita, Dennis Hull, Eric Nestorenko, Bill White, Pat Stapleton on for Chicago. Beliveau, Frank Mahovlich, Yvan Cournoyer, J.C. Tremblay, and Guy Lapointe on for Montreal. No score. Canadians moving from left to right hand. Chicago, of course, in the opposite direction. Stapleton from center ice, throwing it into the Canadian zone. Off the far board, it goes to the backboard, and Frank Mahovlich leads it out to J.C. Tremblay, and Tremblay throws it to the far side. And to the center line comes Beliveau to the Hawk blue line. Beliveau moving in. Beliveau moving in on the right side, trying to get a backhander away. He couldn't. He centers it, and it's deflected all the way through to the far board, and Nikita in the Hawk zone to the near side, and Stapleton at his blue line. And Whitey leads to Nikita on the right wing to the blue line. Nikita trying to fake. He does. Carries it into the far corner. Wants to center. It comes all the way through to the near board. And picked up by Nestorenko. But he's checked from the side. The puck is dumped out to center ice by Cournoyer to Bill White. At the Hawk blue line. Now to the near side, and Dennis Hull. Off the near board. Overskates the puck off the near board. Digs it away. Gives it back to Stapleton. Stapleton to Nikita. And Nikita leading on the right wing. Nestorenko, a shot. And a save by Dryden. He got just enough of it to just send it by the left goal post. A tough break. We thought that Nestor had one. Into the Hawk zone, a quick shot, and it's wide and high to the left side, but the whistle had already blown at the Chicago Blackhawks blue line. We thought we saw the red light about to go on, Harvey.
Well, Stan Mikita made a perfect pass to Eric, and Eric really fired it for that lower right-hand corner, but Ken Dryden, the big goalkeeper, covering a lot of ground, made a great kick save, got his pad out on the puck and kicked it wide.
13 minutes and 16 seconds are gone here in the first period, and no score. Both clubs have had opportunities, but it has not been a wild shooting first period. Possession to the Blackhawks. Jarrett, blue line, center line, long shot deflected by Harper into the near corner, and Rayshawn Houle picks it up for the Canadiens. He overskates it, back to the blue line. It comes to Magnuson. Magnuson winding a shot, and it's deflected wide to the left side. Bobby Hull was trying the deflection and got too much of it. Now Chico Mackey digging forward in the near corner along with Harper. And Harper getting some help from Pete Mahovlich, and Harper finally takes it out and goes behind the net. Still forechecked by Chico Mackey. And Harper leads it out to Houle, away from him, and the interception to the Hawks. Jarrett out to the far side of Magnuson. Magnuson to Coral, and he tips it into the Canadian zone around the far corner. Taken by Harper off the backboard. He stands behind the net. Harper still controls behind the net. Now he leads it off on the right wing. On off the stick of Pete Mahovlich, picked up by Pitt Martin at center ice for Chicago. Martin drops it back into the Hawk zone to Jarrett off the near board. Jarrett to Bobby Hull, tipped off of his stick back to the Canadian zone inside the blue line to the near side now, and Harper. Harper out to center ice. His play broken by Bobby Hull. Hull is checked by Rayshawn Houle. Loose puck picked up by Martin. He's checked immediately into center ice. Doug Jarrett for Chicago to the far side. And Magnuson. He leads, intended for O'Shea, overled. Dumped back to center ice, and O'Shea intercepts. Gives to Martin on the near board. Martin's lead into the Canadian zone to Pappen. Pappen in front, but the whistle has blown for an offside play. We'll be back with more right after this. Well, Harvey, that was a close offside play. It looked like the Hawks may have had something going.
Well, it was just that the puck deflected off the skate just about a half a stride to get Jimmy offside.
Face off at center ice, the draw to the Canadiens. We have no score coming up to the 15-minute mark of the first period. The puck deflected down into the Hawk zone as the whistle blows, and it'll be brought back out to center ice for the face-off. 4 penalties thus far in the first period. All of them have been minor calls. 2 against Montreal and 2 against Chicago. John Ashley, the referee, the linesman Matt Pavlich, and John D'Amico. Face off at center ice on the far side of the rink. The draw back into the Hawk zone at Jarrett. From the near side of the far side at Magnuson. Ahead to Pappen, and Pappen checks solidly on the play by Lapointe. And the loose puck at center ice intercepted by Henri Richard. And in turn intercepted by Jarrett. He gives the net to O'Shea. O'Shea on the left wing. He goes into the near corner. O'Shea wants to center. It's poked away off the side of the crease. And intercepted by Martin. Martin in front to O'Shea. O'Shea, a backhander, broken up. And now Martin from the far side. His shot is broken up by Lapointe and taken by Lapointe. And cleared out to center ice past Doug Jarrett. And down into the Chicago zone. Magnuson digs along with Lemaire. No icing on the play, and Magnuson is filled up behind the net as the Canadiens fight for the puck. Henri Richard trying the backhander. Broken up, taken by Danny O'Shea. And O'Shea skates it out of the Hawk zone to the blue line. Out to center ice. Drops it back to Jarrett. Jarrett ahead to Martin. Off of his skate. Lemaire picks it up. Now Jarrett intercepts again on the near side at center ice and throws it into the Canadian zone, and it goes behind the net. Dryden gives to J.C. Tremblay. J.C. Tremblay leads it out to Henri Richard. Out to center ice to the center line. Richard dumping it into the Hawk zone. A bouncing shot and a save by Esposito. Puck goes to the far corner and Jarrett deflected away. Right in front. Here's to Henri Richard with a shot wide on the left side. And back to the far point. LaPerriere shot broken up. Taken by Bill White. And the Hawks come back 3-on-2. Bill White to the blue line. Bill White to the left wing. Dennis Hull a shot. And it's wide. Even though it was kicked away by Dryden. And off the backboard taken by Henri Richard. 4 minutes remaining to be played in the first period. Still no score. Possession to the Canadiens. Center ice and LaPerriere throws it into the Hawk zone around the far corner. It skips into the near corner. And there all alone is Bellevaux. Tries to center it. Goes behind the net. And picked up and centered right out in front. Bellevaux can't hold it. Now Dennis Hull comes back with Eric Nesterenko and Nikita. Dennis Hull a shot from center ice. And the save by Dryden. And Dryden clears it in the far corner. Nikita is there. Nikita centering pass comes all the way through to the near board. And deflected out to center ice to Stapleton. Stapleton to White on the far side. White leading to the blue line, and Eric Nesterenko can't hold it, but he regains at the center line of the far side of the ring. Nesterenko leads to Dennis Hull, but he's checked away on the play by Harper in the loose puck into the near corner. And thrown out to center ice, and Pete Mahovlich. His long lead knocked down by Bill White. And Bill White dumps it back into the Canadian zone off the far corner behind the net. Stopped by Dryden. No score as we're moving into the later stages of the first period. Pete Mahovlich leads it. Out comes LaPointe to his blue line, to the center line, and led to the Hawk blue line of Pete Mahovlich, but he can't hold it. Mahovlich and Bobby Hull both go to the backboard. Bill White comes into the play, and they hold the puck on the board as the whistle blows a face-off in the Hawk zone.
Both teams still waiting for an opportunity, Lloyd, and there's been good forechecking and good back-checking by both clubs, but they're very cautious. They want to really make these defensemen work tonight. They're dumping those pucks in the corner and trying to outrace the defenseman forward, and as the game goes on, these fellows are going to have to get a little tired with the heat in the building and the pace of this game.
A lot of heat, as a matter of fact, a moment ago, Harvey, I thought I saw some steam rising from the ice down there. A warm night at Chicago Stadium. Face-off in the Hawk zone, picked up by Bill White. Bill White leading to Chico Mackey. Chico Mackey out to the center line. And on the lead, deflected by LaPointe into the Canadian zone. And LaPointe goes into the far corner. Wheels around, leads it out to Pete Mahovlich. Deflected away from him, taken by Stapleton at center ice. Stapleton winds a long shot and a save by Dryden. Into the near corner and Chico Mackey. Chico Mackey tries to center it. Goes to the backboard. And Rajon Houle takes a solid shot from Bobby Hull. Rajon Houle is all over Bobby Hull. And we have a penalty coming up. A holding call against Rajon Houle. And Houle complains to John Ashley about the call. And we'll be back with more in a moment. Well, Harvey, that penalty just called against Houle for holding Bobby Hull at 17:35 reminded me of the one that occurred up in Montreal. What else can you call that kind of stuff but holding?
Well, Bobby gave him a good check in a battle for the puck, and Houle, in a little bit of frustration, grabbed a hold of Bobby as Bobby was trying to center it out. So we have our second power play opportunity of the game. Let's hope we can click on it and get the lead before the end of this period.
Face off to the right of Dryden, and the draw won by the Blackhawks. Swept away from Chico Mackey in the near corner. Pete Mahovlich throws it behind the Canadian net, and LaPointe tries to clear it off the foul board. He hits Ashley with it, and it's deflected right back to LaPointe. LaPointe out to center ice. Canadians 2-on-2. Pete Mahovlich over the blue line decides to wheel back and throw it back into the Canadian zone to eat up the time of the penalty. Thrown to the far board, and LaPerriere. LaPerriere at center ice decides to dump it into the Hawk zone around the far corner, and Esposito is out for Bobby Hull. We have 2 minutes left to play in the first period. Power play hockey for Chicago. Chico Mackey dumps it out to center ice. As he was checked to the play, and Frank Mahovlich picks it up and leads it to LaPointe in the Canadian zone. To the near side at center ice, and Pete Mahovlich to the Chicago blue line. Mahovlich trying to drop it back, and back from the Chicago Blackhawks. Jimmy Pappin to the blue line. Jimmy Pappin's putting on the brakes and leading to the right wing, and Bobby Hull at the far point leads it into the far corner, and Martin trying to center it back is deflected away, and still in the Canadian zone to the near point, and Stapleton winding, taking the shot, gives to Martin in front, and Jimmy Pappin a backhander, a save, and no rebound for Chicago as the puck is poked to the far board and cleared out of there by Guy Lapointe. The Hawks ever so near and so close. Stapleton in the Hawk zone, moving it out in power play hockey. 45 seconds left in the penalty. Center ice to Bobby Hull to the blue line. Bobby Hull is back shot, and a save by Dryden, and the puck is cleared out of the Canadian zone. What a save the Canadian goaltender just made on a powerful slash by Bobby Hull. 55 seconds left to go in the period. Coral in the blue line. Back to Bobby Hull. Another slap shot, and it's wide. Dennis Hull, a shot to the goal. Ken Dryden, but it deflected off to the left wing. Dennis Hull was there. He took that powerful shot of his. He slapped it at the Montreal net. It looked like it may have been deflected off a defenseman, but Dennis Hull, I believe, will be credited with the goal, and most important of all, the Blackhawks have the first goal and the lead 1-0.
Lloyd taking that shot off the backboards by Dennis Hull. He set himself, planted, and he fired, and I think Dryden, who was scrambling back to cover the other side, he got his glove out, and I think the puck deflected off Dryden's glove and not a defenseman, and it just went into the corner of the net with the sheer force of the shot. That was Dennis' 7th goal in the playoffs this year, and his lucky 13th in his Stanley Cup playoff career series.
And the face-off in center ice, the draw back to the Hawk zone. And Doug Jarrett from the near side to the far side, and Magnuson. He couldn't hold it. The pass was too high. Into the Canadian zone, and J.C. Tremblay. J.C. Tremblay to the near side of the Canadian blue line. Out to center ice, Belleville. Belleville to the Hawk blue line, leading in front, and poked away by Esposito, and he reaches out with the glove, and he holds on. Here's the announcement on the first goal of the game. Dennis Hull.
Assisted by number 20, Cliff Coral.
Cliff Coral assisting.
Number 9, Bobby Hull.
Bobby Hull assisting.
At 19:12.
19:12, the official time on the goal.
Goal giving the Hawks the leader on the power play, and we have to bottle up the Canadian power play and keep our own one rolling.
And the face-off in the Chicago zone is carried into the far corner and held on the board by Belleville and Pat Stapleton and Bill White. So a power play effort on the part of Dennis Hull, assisted by Bobby Hull and Cliff Coral at 19:12. The Blackhawks have the lead 1-0. Face-off will be to the right of Tony Esposito. Belleville and Nikita, as both clubs once again are at equal strength. Getting a little hazy at Chicago Stadium. Very, very warm. Very, very close in the stadium tonight. Warm temperatures outside. Nikita and Belleville on the face-off. The draw to the far board, taken by Bill White. To the near corner and by Pat Stapleton. Leads it out to center ice under the stick of Nikita. Goes the length of the ice. Kiva Point is down there to touch it. It's an icing call against Chicago.
Pat trying to shake Stan Mikita loose at center ice, but it just didn't work, and it was an icing call, so we have another face-off back in the Hawk zone. To the left of Tony Esposito with just about 12 seconds left here in period number 1.
We would expect that both coaches this evening, once again, will be inclined, as the game goes on to be changing their lines rather briskly. From the face-off in the Hawk zone, Nestorenko out to center ice to Bobby Hull off the near board. Back to Nestorenko and overled in the Canadian zone, and John Ferguson intercepts. Just a couple of seconds remaining in the period. Nikita from center ice flips it into the Canadian zone. And there it is. There's the end of the first period. With the score, the Chicago Blackhawks 1, the Montreal Canadiens 0. We'll be back with our between periods show right after this. And now let's go back early in the first period in our hockey game to the 3:56 mark, when both goaltenders, Ken Dryden of the Montreal Canadiens and, of course, Tony Esposito of Chicago, had been pretty well tested all the way. And then this is spectacular play. Bobby Hull to the center line, to the blue line, moving down the middle. Bobby Hull trying to get his shot away. A beautiful save by Ken Dryden. Bobby could not get his wrist shot away. Dryden came out, spun around on his side, and Bobby then had to try the backhander, and Ken Dryden made a tremendous move, leaving his net open but able to grab the puck off the stick of Bobby Hull. So Ken Dryden continuing warm, and we mean that in just about every way at Chicago Stadium this evening, in making that fine play against the Chicago Blackhawks' Bobby Hull. The shooting continued in the first period without scoring. Leading on the right wing is Esposito, a shot, and a save by Dryden. He got just enough of it to just send it by the left goal post. A tough break. We thought that Nestor had one. So the game continued that way. Good positional hockey, good forechecking, good back checking, considerable body checking, some rough activity, but it continued that way scoreless up until 1912. 55 seconds left to go in the period. Coral in the blue line, back to Bobby Hull, another slap shot, and it's wide. Dennis Hull, a shot, and a goal! Montreal net. It looked like it may have been deflected off a defenseman, but Dennis Hull, I believe, will be credited with the goal, and most important of all, the Blackhawks have the first goal and the lead 1-0. And that's where we stand right now as our first intermission continues at Chicago Stadium. And we'll be back with more for you right after this. So, in case you've just joined us, this is the final game of the Stanley Cup competition at Chicago Stadium, with the Blackhawks at the end of one period leading by a score of 1-0 on a goal by Dennis Hull at 1912. Harvey Wittenberg is here with us. What are your impressions of the first period, Harvey?
Well, it was a well-played period. The Hawks had the better opportunities and the better scoring opportunities, and had, I felt, most control of the play. We've done a good job of forechecking and back-checking. Most of the Canadian shots in that first period were all long ones. The best opportunity was Frank Mahovlich at about the 12 or 14-minute mark. And we scored on our second power play opportunity. And then the key thing in that game Sunday, where we played so well and lost a heartbreaker in the last period, we were able to keep the Canadian power play bottled up, and we can do that and keep fellows like Beliveau off the scoreboard. Beliveau has already set a new record for most assists in a playoff year with 16. But Dennis Hull's shot was a blistering shot. And Dave Dryden, Ken Dryden, would covered on Bobby Hull's first shot from the right side, scampered over to the left, and Dennis was just anchored right out in that face-off circle about 25 feet away, got the puck on his stick, and he fired it. As Dryden scrambled back, he got his glove out, and the force of the shot hit off the glove and into the net. Dryden really didn't have much of a chance on that. It was a good play by Dennis Hull. On our shots in the first period, Guy Lapointe for the Canadiens had 3 of the 6 shots. Henri Richard had 2, and that other shot by Frank Mahovlich. For the Blackhawks, Dennis Hull had 3 shots on goal. Bobby Hull had 2. Stan Mikita had 2. Pat Stapleton had 2. Eric Nestorenko had 1. Chico Mackey had 1. And Keith Magnuson, Jimmy Pappin, not Chico Mackey, and Keith Magnuson had 1 shot for our 12 shots on goal. But we continue to play the strong positional game, a sound defensive game. We'll do all right, but we have to get more than a 1-goal lead in the Canadiens. It's not safe enough.
Harvey, it's been a long season, as you pointed out just a moment ago. This is the Chicago Blackhawks' 106th hockey game, and believe me, the last 4 or 5 or 6 of these games have been played under summertime conditions, and we naturally have to continue to talk about this because it may turn out to be a factor in the final outcome of the series. What about conditioning? What about the pace? What about the heat? Will it eventually tell on these individual hockey players?
Well, it's got to take its toll, Lloyd, but, you know, the players have to look at it this way. This is the end of the road. Today's the last game, and they've got to give it everything they've got left, and summon a little more stamina, a little more energy, and a little more push, a little more drive for that puck. And the important thing is, as far as the Hawks are concerned, not to make those mistakes. But the thing is that as we move on, the heat of the building, the crowd here, and even now the ice has been resurfaced, but it looks like there's still a little water around there. And what can happen in that last period, with the ice warming up a little bit, the puck will start taking some funny bounces. That's what we got to look out for.
And this is what the players have to look for at all time. So many times have you seen when the ice is not in excellent condition, have you seen a puck bounce over a stick, create a defensive error or even an offensive error, and a goal was not prevented or a goal was not scored only because the condition of the ice. So the players are very well aware of this and are extra careful when the ice does get a little bumpy, Howard.
The caution's been the watchword in the first period, and we had a couple good opportunities of working the puck in close and trying to center that puck around and then hope it bounced around on somebody's stick, and we've come close, and we've checked the Canadiens. That's the important thing. They haven't had any close-in shots, and we're playing sound positional hockey, and that's the way the game should be played. Sometimes some of the fans don't think it's as exciting as it should be, but we're using our body well. It's a good check dished out by Doug Jarrett, Bobby Hull, and Eric Nestorenko and Cliff Coral. And that line with Cliff Coral, Chico Mackey, and Bobby Hull has been working extremely well against the Canadiens tonight.
Speaking of the bodily contact, that seems to be the pattern in the Stanley Cup Series between these two clubs. The Hawks throwing a lot of weight around at home, not quite as much weight around at the Forum in Montreal.
Well, you know, you can get away with a little more at home, and you have a little more confidence on the ice. They say this rink is a little smaller than the Forum in Montreal, so the Hawks can take better aim on the Canadiens.
We pause 5 seconds for station identification.
This is WMAQ Chicago, the home of Jim Stagg from 2 until 6.
And we'll be back with more from Chicago Stadium right after this. First intermission continues. The Chicago Blackhawks have the lead in this final game of the Stanley Cup competition between the Canadiens and the Hawks. 1-0. On a goal, a power play affair by Dennis Hull, assisted by Bobby Hull and Cliff Coral. It came at 19-12. Harvey, there were 3 power play opportunities in the first period, 2 for Chicago and 1 for Montreal. 1 power play goal was scored. I think we should comment, however, that the first penalty of the game went early in the game against Harper of Montreal, and the Canadian penalty killers played very well against the power play at that time.
They did an excellent job, and in the first minute of the penalty against Toole, they had it spotted up, but we finally got to him with Bobby Hull's long shot coming just right off the board on the left side to Dennis, and he banged it home. So commenting White, looking back on the whole season, this is our 106th game, including the 10 exhibitions, the playoffs, and the regular season. The Blackhawks were not shut out at all during this season, and we never lost more than 2 games at one time, and it only happened on 3 different occasions during the season.
All right, the Canadiens coming back on the ice now, led out by Ken Dryden through the gates to our left. The officials also coming on the ice through the gates to our right. John Ashley, the referee, the linesman Matt Pavlich, and John D'Amico. Ashley called 5 penalties in the first period, 3 against Montreal and 2 against Chicago. The Blackhawks will be coming up from their dressing room through the gates to the right, and here they come now. The Blackhawks coming out again. MacNeil follows his team out of the Montreal dressing room. Al MacNeil, a former Chicago Blackhawk who took over the coaching reins for the Canadiens this year. And MacNeil, who has been under considerable pressure, especially after the outburst on the part of Henri Richard of just a few days ago. Billy Reay will be following his team out of the second period. It'll get underway in just a moment, and we'll be back with it. Course have changed ends for the start of the second period. Tony Esposito for the Hawks in the nets to our left. The Hawks will be moving in that direction, left to right. In the nets to our right, Ken Dryden, and of course the Canadiens moving from our right to our left. Waiting for the face-off at center ice, it'll be Stan Mikita for Chicago, facing off against Jean Beliveau. Mikita winged on the left by Dennis Hull, on the right by Eric Nestorenko. The opening draw of the second period to the Canadiens. LaPerriere in the Canadian zone to the far side of LaPointe and right back to LaPerriere. His play broken at center ice, taken by Stapleton at the blue line, winding his left shot is broken up by LaPointe. Have taken behind and to the side of the net by LaPointe and throws it into the near corner. Intercepted by Nestorenko. Nestorenko, a shot and a save. Mikita tried the tip in, but it went off the pad of Ken Dryden. Back come the Canadiens. LaPerriere to Bellevaux out to center ice. He backhands it into the Hawk zone, and Eric Nesterenko skates into the near corner. Pokes it behind the net to the far corner, and Dennis Hull. Stolen away from Dennis Hull and centered right on the front, but taken by Nesterenko. As the Hawks come back 3-on-3, Nikita to the center line, leading to the left wing. Dennis Hull, wrist shot deflected as he got it underway, and over the glass, behind and to the left of Ken Dryden.
When your goal is pleasing everyone, set the table with Leon's Polish sausage. It's the old-fashioned, full-of-flavor kielbasa nobody can pass up. Leon's available at Hillman Food Stores, Mayflower, and your local independent grocer.
Good ice position for Chicago, facing off to the right of Ken Dryden. And the draw is won by the Canadiens, and Jean Beliveau throws it the length of the ice down to the backboard. Touched there by Stapleton, and the whistle blows. It's an icing call against the Canadiens. So we go right back to the face-off circle to the right side of Ken Dryden. I don't believe, Harvey, that was a defensive move on the part of Beliveau. I just thought he was trying to throw it out to center ice.
I was trying to get it out to Yvan Cournoyer, but the pass skipped along the boards past Cournoyer and all the way down. So we have good ice position on the face-off, and Chico Mackey's out there with Bobby Hull and Cliff Coral. And of course, every time Bobby's back there on the draw, we're hoping that Chico can get it to him and he can whistle one past Dryden.
Well, it's happened a couple of times in very important face-off plays in that face-off circle where the draw has been slipped to Bobby Hull and he's put the goal home. But this face-off comes out to center ice and off the near board, Magnuson flipping it down into the Canadian zone. Off the near corner, the side of the cage. Coral trying to lead it over as it was deflected away as two Blackhawks were open in the open net. Into the Hawks zone, a shot and a save by Esposito, and he holds on. Rajon Houle got a good solid shot away at Tony Esposito. And Tony made the save, and he held on. A near miss down there, Harvey.
Well, it was a great opportunity. Chico, I guess, didn't realize Cliff was right out in front of the net of the open net as Chico tried to center it back to the point. And if he could have just slid it over to Cliff, he would have had an open net.
So now good ice position for the Canadiens. To the left of Tony Esposito, Pete Mahovlich, and Chico Mackey waiting for the faceoff. And the draw to Bobby Hull. Bobby Hull moves behind the net, but the whistle has blown. A false faceoff. We'll do it again. 1-0 in favor of the Blackhawks. 1 minute and 7 seconds into the second period. The Hawks outshot Montreal in the first period 12-6. Mackey and Pete Mahovlich on the face-off, the draw to the blue line, the point. He throws it into the near corner. It bounces behind the Hawk net and poked away by Doug Jarrett to the near board of the Hawk zone. Taken by Coral. Cliff Coral out to center ice to Chico Mackey at the blue line. A slap shot, and it's wide to the right side. It looked to me as if Dryden may have been a little confused on that shot. Looked as if he wasn't quite sure where it was. Led back to the blue line on the right wing as Cliff Coral is ridden out of the play by Ferguson. And picked up behind the net by LaPointe into the far corner, stolen by Bobby Hull. Centered, and Coral couldn't get a shot away. The pass was too high off the ice. And out to center ice comes Pete Mahovlich to the center line. Mahovlich gets by Magnuson, and Mahovlich is tripped, and down he goes, and we have a penalty coming up against Chicago. We'll be back in a moment. 1:49 is the time of the tripping call against Keith Magnuson. He tripped up Pete Mahovlich, and Pete Mahovlich, Harvey, was really upset about it.
Well, the Canadiens had kept control of the puck for a while, and he thought the faceoff should have been in the Blackhawk zone, but Keith was real unhappy on that one. Like, he threw his hip into Pete Mahovlich as he went by him, and Mahovlich just went right over his hip and went to the ice, and as long as the player slides into the opposing player and uses his hip, but of course Ashley probably felt he stuck his foot in front of that hip.
So in either case, the Blackhawks are short-handed. Face off at center ice between Chico Mackey and Beliveau. The draw to the Hawk zone, and Bill White dumps it out of the Hawk zone to the blue line of the Canadiens on the far side. And now back comes Montreal, led out by J.C. Tremblay. He's to the center line, moving toward the near board. Carries over the Hawk blue line on the left side. Dumps it in, poked away by Esposito off the near board, and Bill White clears past LaPerriere out to center ice. LaPerriere to Beliveau at the center line on the left wing to Mahovlich. Mahovlich winding a shot and a save by Esposito. The rebound to Bill White. And Bill White, he clears the length. Blackhawks leading 1-0, trailing now as far as manpower is concerned with Magnuson sitting for tripping. LaPerriere back to the center line. LaPerriere dumps it into the Hawk zone, but way offside on the left wing was Frank Mahovlich. 2.5 minutes into the second period. 1-0 in favor of Chicago. A first period goal by Dennis Hull.
What's missing in Leon sausage? Fat. Leon took out all the excess calories and left the flavor in. You'll love Leon sausage, available at Elm Farm, Hillman's Food Stores, and your local independent grocer.
MacNeil making some changes on his power play. Brings on Jacques Lemaire to face off at center ice with Lou Angotti. The draw into the Hawk zone off the near board. Bill White is there, and Bill White clears. It turns onto the stick of Ken Dryden, and he drops it off to J.C. Tremblay. 1 minute and 5 seconds left on the penalty. Canadians in their own zone coming out. Pete Mahovlich to the blue line, to the center line, leading into the Hawk zone. It goes around the far corner behind the net. Angotti is on it. Angotti spins around in the near corner. Still controls. Now he throws it to Nesterenko, and Nesterenko deflects it past Pete Mahovlich down into the Canadian zone. 45 seconds left in the penalty. J.C. Tremblay leading him out to center ice. Gives to Lemaire. Lemaire to the Hawk blue line on the right wing. Dropping it back to Mahovlich on his off wing. He centers back to the blue line. Here's Pete Mahovlich winding a shot. And deflected to the left side into the near corner. And Angotti can't clear. Pete Mahovlich leading into the slot. And here's the shot broken up by Stapleton. And it goes into the near corner. And fought for Nesterenko. And now also Pete Mahovlich. And Nesterenko moves away as Mahovlich wants to throw punches at almost anybody he can find. Really playing the bad boy here in this hockey game. Wanted to take on Eric Nesterenko, and Eric Nesterenko not particularly inclined to become involved with Pete Mahovlich out of strategy, if anything else.
They're both going to go, Lloyd.
Well, the crowd is not going to like this one. Pete Mahovlich is going, and Eric Nesterenko also. We'll be back in a moment. Go for roughing at 3:20. Pete Mahovlich and Eric Nesterenko for roughing at 3:20. So the power play opportunity will continue with Chicago's Keith Magnuson having 30 seconds left to serve on his penalty.
A lot of skating room out there with only 4 players out in front of Montreal and 3 in front of goalie Tony Esposito, and Coach Billy Reay is going with Stan Mikita, Pat Stapleton, and Bill White, while the Canadians power play Beliveau, Cournoyer, Frank Mahovlich, and J.C. Tremblay.
It looked to me, Harvey, that like Pete Mahovlich was so mad he would have taken a punch at the cage if he'd been next to it. Face off in the Chicago zone. Draw to Frank Mahovlich. Mahovlich on the near side, throws it behind the net. And behind the net, Cournoyer wants to center. Carries it off toward the far board, drops it off the side of the cage, poked away by Bill White. That picked up back to the blue line of J.C. Tremblay, deflected out by Nikita. Nikita digging in center ice. Nikita on the right wing, over the blue line and off the near board, has the puck at center ice. And Nikita continues to move it. Moving by on the blue line, Nikita is put down and no penalty call. Out to center ice come the Canadians. The penalty is almost over to Magnuson. In the Hawk zone, Cournoyer couldn't get his shot away. Magnuson back on the ice, and the teams are at equal strength, both short of man. Magnuson digging with J.C. Tremblay, hooks it down into the Canadian zone. Magnuson behind the net, centers it out, but it's deflected to the near board. And brought out to center ice. At the center line, the blue line, shot by Frank Mahovlich is high and wide to the right side. And Bobby Hull out to center ice. Poked away from him, picked up by Jarrett. And still poked at by Jarrett as he jumps onto the ice. And the Canadians complain that the Blackhawks had too many men on the ice, and I believe it's going to be called. Linesman D'Amico indicating to John Ashley that the Blackhawks have too many men on the ice, and it appears as if we are going to be shorthanded once again. We'll be back with more in a moment.
At
4:14 is the call. Having too many men on the ice against the Chicago Blackhawks. So Pete Mahovlich and Eric Nesterenko have a minute to serve on their penalties, and Chicago then will be shorthanded. The Blackhawks must select a player to sit in the penalty box.
Well, that's a tough break. We had just written out the penalty and done a good job on it. And one of those shuffles where we don't have a full line on with Nesterenko still in the penalty box, and one too many players went over the board just for a split second, but it was caught by one of the linesmen, John D'Amico, and I don't think it would have occurred, Lloyd, except the Montreal bench was open, their door was open, and the Hawks door bench was open, and the puck got stuck right there, and I think that just gave them a split second to take a fast look up, and they caught the Hawks on the interchange.
Well, Harvey, the rule states that you, in making a substitution, you do not have to have the player coming off the ice actually sitting on the bench before you send his substitute on. There is a certain leeway there. And I think you're right, because as soon as it happened, the Canadian bench to a man stood up and started yelling and pointing. And that's when John D'Amico skated over to John Ashley and said the Hawks had too many men on the ice.
So far, Billy Reay hasn't sent anybody over. He's real upset about it, but better send somebody over so we don't get a bench penalty on top of it. Makita now is going to come out and say something. It looks like Lou Angotti is skating over and will serve the bench minor.
Penalty to be served by Lou Angotti.
Face-off at center ice. Makita pokes it away. Picked up by J.C. Tremblay. Leads to Mahovlich at the center line. Frank Mahovlich over the blue line on the left wing trying to beat Bill White. Mahovlich carries it into the corner. Checked away by Bill White. Stapleton goes behind the net. And the puck is fought for between four players. Makita digs it out. Makita has it on his stick from the Hawk zone, and Makita clears easily. Power play hockey for the Canadiens. Both clubs short personnel. Canadians short one man, the Hawks short two. Center ice play to the Hawk blue line. Lemaire winding his shot, broken up by Bill White. And led to the backboard and picked up by Stapleton. And Whitey Stapleton carries it out slowly, and he clears it off the foul board very slowly indeed down into the Canadian zone. We are 5 minutes into the second period, 1-0 in favor of the Chicago Blackhawks. Mahovlich and Nestorenko with 15 seconds left on their penalties. Back to the near point, LaPointe. To the far point of J.C. Tremblay. Back to the near point again, and Guy LaPointe. His shot right out in front of backhander on a save by Esposito as he spun around and deflected the puck from right in front. As Jacques Lemaire had a great opportunity, but Esposito beat him. And cleared down into the Canadian zone. 45 seconds left now on the penalty to Angotti, serving the bench minor for too many men on the ice at 4:14. Power play hockey continuing for the Canadiens. Dumped into the Blackhawks zone. Bobby Hull behind the net. Carries into the near corner and off the near board. Bobby Hull carries out to center ice to the center line. Winding a shot and a save by Dryden. Bobby Hull's powerful slap shot from outside the blue line. Dryden making the save. Back come the Canadians. Ferguson dumping into the Hawk zone, and Esposito misses and trying to clear it. Hook to the backboard. Bellamo brings it back to the far point, and J.C. Tremblay. J.C. Tremblay throwing it into the far corner. Taken by Bellamo, trying to center. Ferguson can't get a shot away. And behind the net, and banged off the near board, or over the near board on the near side of the rink. And play stops with just a few seconds remaining on the penalty to Angotti and the Blackhawks.
Just about 6 seconds left on the penalty. And thus far, the penalty killers for the Blackhawks have done their job. And if we can get this face up and clear the puck out of the zone, the penalty will be over, and we'll be back at full strength for the first time in quite a while here in the second period. We're holding that slim 1-0 lead against these Canadians.
So the face-off will be to the right of Tony Esposito, as both clubs making changes once again. We'll repeat for you in case you're wondering why these line changes are being made so often. It is very, very warm in Chicago Stadium tonight. A warm day in the Windy City. 1-0 in favor of the Hawks. A first period goal by Dennis Hull, assisted by Bobby Hull and Flip Coral. It came at 19:12. It was a power play goal while Hull was sitting for holding. Face off to the right of Esposito. The draw back to the near point. LaPerriere with a shot deflected by Bill White. It goes to the far board of the Hawks zone. Stapleton can't get to it. Stapleton without a stick. Skates it out to the blue line. Poked down and cleared by the body of Stapleton. Angotti back on the ice. The penalty is over, and a roar of approval from the crowd for the defensive work by Pat Stapleton. Center ice interception by Angotti. The lead intended for Bobby Hull. Poked away. The out at center ice. Now to the Hawk blue line. Henri Richard on the right wing. His shot is wide on the left side and comes to the near board. Picked up by Tardif. Back to LaPerriere. His shot deflected by Bobby Hull. Picked up by Stapleton. And led out to center ice to Bobby Hull. And Bobby Hull slipped and fell down at the time, and the puck is in the Canadian zone as Makita throws a solid check into Tardif. Tardif gets up onto the loose puck. Moves it behind the net into the near corner to Henri Richard off the near board. And Henri Richard retreats going behind the Canadian net as the crowd in Chicago calls for a little heavy forechecking. Dumped out to center ice as the Canadians force the issue once again. Overskating is Henri Richard. Led to Jimmy Pappen at the blue line. One-on-one. Pappen moving it in on the left wing. Leading in the slot in front of backhander and deflected off the post. board. It is intentionally iced by the Canadiens. Danny O'Shea, another fine opportunity for the Blackhawks. He appeared to be a little bit off balance after the check, Harvey.
Well, it was good work by Jimmy Pappen, who had one-on-one. He waited for O'Shea to come through, and he put it right on his stick through the skates of one of the Canadian defensemen, and O'Shea banged it right off the post as that Dryden beat, but it just hit the post and nicked away.
7 minutes and 20 seconds are gone in the second period. 1-0 in favor of the Blackhawks. A little bit of ice repair in the Canadian end. The face-off circle to the right. That Pavlich down at his knees, smoothing out a rut that was cut there by a skate. As the crowd here at Chicago Stadium calls for more action on the part of the Chicago Blackhawks. They lead it 1-0. Tony Esposito in the nets to our left with one arm up on the top of the cage and his head just kind of hanging down. Harvey, he's got to be an awfully tired goaltender.
Well, I'm sure Dryden is too. It's quite hot out there. The pressure's really on. Every shot counts in this game, and all the chips are riding on the game tonight. There's a little bit of a discussion down in their face-off circle. I don't know what about, right? It's broken up now, and John Ashley goes away, but with the heat out there and the pressure all combined and the long season and the pressure really on both goalkeepers tonight.
Lemaire and Martin on the face-off, and the draw stolen by Pappen. Pappen loses control of the puck and goes to the foul board. Here's Gerald with a turnaround shot, deflected to the backboard on the left side. Martin pokes it out in front. O'Shea, a shot to go! Montreal Canadiens by a score of 2-0.
Well, that's what hard digging and hard work behind that net counts. As Martin got that puck out to O'Shea, it caught on the inside of his blade. He wheeled around and then fired it low in the left-hand corner, beating Dryden. And that's Stanley's second goal in the playoffs this year. He had his first goal in the series against Philadelphia, so he's gone for a little bit of a dry spell. And that's the third of his career, but it came at a big time, giving the Hawks a big 2-goal edge now. It's really putting the pressure on the Canadiens. The time of the goal will be 7:33, and either Doug Jarrett or Jimmy Papp will get the other assist along with Martin on that big goal.
Not to throw in a negative note, but just one for Blackhawk fans to not become too optimistic at this moment. Harvey, the reason being simply that we have previously led these Canadiens by 2 goals, and they have fought that.
That's true. We can't let up. We have to continue the same style of play. But I think the key thing in this period, Lloyd, is the fact we've had 2 penalties against us where we're short. We killed off the penalties, and now we've come back. We get a goal after some fine play by our penalty killers, and it's got to give the team a big lift.
So the officials conferring at center ice, waiting for the happy debris to be picked up at Chicago Stadium. And we'll be back with more action right after this word. So most of the debris has been picked up now. And the extra players who have not seen any action have come out to do a little skating on their own. And of course, everybody kind of swarmed all over Danny O'Shea after he poked that short shot past Dryden. And the Blackhawks moved to a 2-0 lead in this, the final game. And the crowd at Chicago Stadium has not had one quiet moment since the opening faceoff.
Just 30 seconds before, Danny had banged it off the post, but he didn't make a mistake this time as he got it in that lower corner to beat Ken Dryden.
We still have yet to receive the official announcement on the goal. Face-off at center ice. Jarrett, far side, throws it into the Canadian zone off the far corner. Behind the net, stopped by Dryden. J.C. Tremblay throws it around the near corner. It skids out to center ice and beat Mahavlich. Mahavlich with a long shot is wide to the left side. And it bounces to the foul board, and Martin is on it. Can't get it by Ashley. And it's below Ashley's skates and out. Dumped out to center ice to Martin. line. Martin flipping it into the Canadian zone off the backboard. The rebound goes to J.C. Tremblay. We are 7 minutes. Correction, 8 minutes into the second period, 2-0. Martin takes it off the backboard, trying to center it. And Pepin banned on the shot. The puck slid out, right to it. Now Bobby Hull, a shot. I believe it went off the crossbar. It hit the bar and came right out. There will be people who will say that puck went into the net and came right out. No argument on the part of Chicago. Center ice play. Interception. J.C. Tremblay, Canadiens, leading on the right wing to the far board. Hawk zone. Bobby Hull dumps it out to center ice, and J.C. Tremblay to beat Mahovlich dumps it into the Canadiens to the Chicago zone, and it's an offside play. No argument, Harvey, from Chicago, so that's apparently what happened. Bobby Hull hit the crossbar.
Well, it was real quick, and the goal judge has the decision on that one, but it was up high, and we're up high here, and it's difficult to see, but the puck came bounding right back. And so they ruled that it hit the crossbar, and that's another half inch that would have been in because it had Dryden beat.
The official announcement, O'Shea's goal assisted by Pitt Martin at 7:33. 2-0 in favor of Chicago. As the puck is dumped to the blue line of the Canadiens, Beliveau off the near board, gives it to Frank Mahovlich, retreats inside the blue line, now moves out to center ice past Makita, to the center line. Mahovlich on the right wing, past Magnuson, leading in front. Beliveau couldn't get the shot away. Cournoyer with a shot, and Esposito makes the save. Well, Harvey, that second goal certainly appears to have lifted the Blackhawks.
Well, changes the complexion of the game. The Canadiens going to have to open up a little bit. There's still a lot of time left in the game, but they were playing more for an opportunity, and now they're going to have to make their own opportunity. I thought sure there would be another assist on that goal. Maybe we'll get a little later on either for Jarrett or Jim Pappin.
Face off to the right of Tony Esposito. Stan Makita for Chicago and Jean Beliveau for the Canadiens. The draw into the near corner, and Bill White has it on his stick. Throws it behind the net to the far corner, and Stapleton checked by Cournoyer. Dennis Hull is checked solidly on the far board, and the puck slides out to center ice, taken by Makita. Makita to Nesterenko over the blue line on the right wing. Nesterenko fading, trying to lead it into the slot, deflected, and the Canadiens come back 3-on-2. Led by Mahovlich down the left line, over the blue line, and the pass back to Mahovlich broken up. Dennis Hull clears into the near corner as Cournoyer throws it to the far board, and Mahovlich trying to center. He's put down behind the net, right in front. Cournoyer is poked off of his stick by Stapleton, and off the near board of the Hawk zone as Nesterenko fight for it, gives to Stapleton. Led ahead to center ice to Dennis Hull, to Makita on the right wing, over the blue line, and dumping it into the far corner of the Canadian zone, and Terry Harper is on it for Montreal. Led out to center ice and taken by Stapleton to Makita, off of his skate to the far board. Makita regains and dumps it again into the Canadian zone, onto the stick of Dryden. Picked up by LaPerriere. LaPerriere moving toward the near boards, out to his blue line, and leading, broken up by Bill White, and Bill White throws it back into the Canadian zone. Behind the net, it goes to the far corner, and we are halfway through the second period. 2-0 Chicago. Chico Mackey to Bobby Hull. Chico back to Bobby on the left wing. Bobby Hull from Chico Mackey to Bill White. Bill White on the right wing, is pass deflected into the near corner, and Coral trying to center it out. It's intercepted by Lemaire. Lemaire out to center ice, 1-on-3. Lemaire over the blue line, a quick shot and a save by Esposito. And he clears it behind but off to the side of the net, and Bill White. Bill White back to the Hawk blue line. Off the skate of Chico Mackey to the blue line. Chico Mackey to Coral. Coral with a shot and a save. And flying into the left wing was Bobby Hull. But Dryden held on. We pause 5 seconds for station identification.
This is WMAQ Chicago, where you can hear Bob Beasley from 6 until 10:30.
A good move, Harvey, by Dryden, and holding on to that because Bobby was coming on.
A fine pass by Cliff Coral, and a hard shot as the Hawks are flying. And as we mentioned, with this tempo and the heat in the building, they're changing lines about almost every minute. As it's really, the pace has not slackened in this series from game to game.
Good ice position for Chicago. Face-off will be to the left of Ken Dryden. The Blackhawks leading 2-0. We have played 10 minutes and 26 seconds of the second period. And the draw to the Canadiens. In the Montreal zone, deflected out to center ice. Lemaire gives to Harvey Richard. Harvey Richard to the blue line, leading on the right wing. Right back, it comes to Richard, but the play is broken, but the whistle had already blown at the blue line.
Canadiens had a good 2-on-1 situation, but Richard looked like it was a half stride over that blue line before the puck moved in, and so there was an offside. As we mentioned, with the capacity crowd here, it's very difficult to hear that whistle.
Face off at center ice, possession to the Canadiens. LaPointe winds, a long shot is wide of the left side, off the backboard and cleared away by Esposito into the near corner. Magnuson throws a solid check, and they hold the puck on the near corner of the Hawk zone. That will have a face-off to the right of Tony Esposito. Blackhawks leading by a score of 2-1, 2-0, that is, coming up to the 11-minute mark in the second period. Dennis Hull in the first period, a power play goal, and Danny O'Shea in the second period, assisted by Martin. Bill White and Pat Stapleton coming back on the ice. What a series those two guys have had, Harvey.
Well, they've been unbelievable. Bill White has the best record of any player in the playoff series, what they call plus and minus, and fewest goals scored while he's on the ice, and most goals scored for his team while he was on the ice.
From the face-off in the Hawks zone, the point shot is broken up and deflected at center ice, but taken by J.C. Tremblay just inside the blue line. Papin almost intercepted. LaPointe has it. Throws to Lemaire at the blue line on the near side. Led to the right wing, out at center ice. Broken up as Rochefort couldn't hold it. Now Danny O'Shea in the Hawk zone. Backhanded out to center ice to Jimmy Papin off the near board. He gets it to Martin. Martin over the blue line on the right wing. Martin, the slap shot, and it's wide to the left side. Just missed the open side, and that was the far side to the right of Ken Dryden. Back to center ice, now to the blue line. Jimmy Papin's pass intended for Martin. Broken up by LaPointe and dumped back to center ice, far side, and O'Shea wheels around and throws it into the Canadian zone. Behind the net, J.C. Tremblay starts skating it out of the Canadian zone. He's at his blue line. He's forechecked by Chico Mackey, but he continues to the Hawk blue line. He brings it on, but he brought it on as Henri Richard was already in the Hawk zone, and it's offside. We'll be back with more after this. Blackhawks 2, the Canadiens nothing. Face-off will be outside the Hawk blue line on the far side of the rink, dumped into the Hawk zone to Magnuson. To the far side of Jarrett. Jarrett's pass intercepted by Pete Mahovlich. Into the far corner, right on in front, and a save by Esposito. He beat Rajon Hull from about 5 feet away, coming in from the far board. And on the near board of the Hawk zone, the puck is held on the board. Magnuson having a little trouble. Rajon Hull has his gloves off along with Cliff Coral.
Hull lost his helmet on the play as they were grappling along the boards, and it looks like Cliff got a little headlock into Rajon, and he wants to get a piece of him, but Ferguson out steps in, and right now it doesn't look like Ashley's going to issue any penalties.
Magnuson and Ferguson had a little bit of a holding match on the near board. Cliff Coral involved with Rajon Hull. Ashley gives no indication of penalty.
That was a close call as Doug Jarrett's pass just went off the edge of his stick. It was picked up by the Canadiens, but once again, Tony Esposito made the save, and the puck was cleared off to the side.
Coming up to the 12-minute mark in the second period, 2-0 Hawks. Pete Mahovlich for the Canadiens, and Chico Mackey for Chicago to the right of Tony Esposito. The draw taken by Ferguson. He kicks it into the slot, but it's deflected into the far corner of the Hawk zone and Stapleton. Ahead to Bobby Home, deflected off the far board and out to center ice. Chico Mackey, 2-on-1 on the left wing. Chico Mackey, a shot and a save and a rebound. The puck is still free off the corner of the crease. Poked out by Dryden, and now it is whistled dead as Cliff Coral having a little more trouble with Rajon Hull out in front. Blackhawks having a great opportunity that time of the 2-on-1 play, but Ken Dryden again stood firm on the shot by Chico Mackey.
That puck was just laying loose right out in the crease, and Chico was trying to swing around and just get his stick at it and tip it by, but he claimed he was being held in the crease there, but referee John Ashley made no call.
So we have 7 minutes and 58 seconds remaining to be played in the second period, 2-0 in favor of the Hawks. Face off to the right of Dryden. It'll be between Chico Mackey and Pete Mahovlich. And now they're set to go. And the draw is poked right out of the Canadian zone by Terry Harper, the length of the ice. Magnuson slowly skates down to the near corner of the Hawk zone, and to touch it, it's an icing call against Montreal. Will maintain good ice position with a face-off in the Canadian zone to the right of Ken Dryden. And again, we would expect to see Chico Mackey and Pete Mahovlich, the combatants, for the face-off. That's where they are. And the draw to Jarrett. Jarrett, a quick shot, an easy save for Dryden. He drops it off to Ferrier, goes behind the net, checked by Coral from the rear. He throws it off the far board, and the Canadiens come back out to center ice. Ferguson overskates the puck. Led back to the center line, and Pete Mahovlich over the Hawk blue line. Solid check by Jarrett. Loose puck picked up by Coral, and Coral is checked into the near board. Ferguson loses control as Magnuson throws a shot into him, and John Ashley is going to call a penalty against Chicago's Magnuson. We'll be back with more in a moment.
Offside pass on the play. But there's going to be a penalty against the Montreal Canadiens. A hooking call against, looks like J.C. Tremblay. So that equalizes the Hawk penalty.
Montreal penalty, number 3, J.C.
Tremblay.
2 minutes for hooking.
A hooking call
At 13:07.
at 13:07. So Magnuson went in at 12:32. After he serves that penalty, the Blackhawks will move to power play hockey.
We'll have a 35-second advantage when Magnuson comes back on the ice. Face off the outside the Blackhawk blue line, and Tony's really looks tired down there. Boy, he's got that arm right there on that crossbar. And it's hot down there. And, you know, the goalie loses about 8 or 10 pounds a game, and that equipment he has on weighs about 60 pounds, and by the end of the game it feels like 120.
Well, I certainly don't envy him, and I especially did not envy Esposito or Ken Dryden in advance of this game. They had to have some terrific butterflies moving into the big game against each other. The game that is led now by the Chicago Blackhawks 2-0. Possession to the Canadiens. LaPerriere throwing it out to center ice. LaPointe's return to the near board. Underled, Lemaire has to retreat. Gives to Lapointe on the far side at the Canadian blue line, moving toward the near boards. Lapointe being forechecked by Martin. Lapointe carries over the center line, carries over the Hawk blue line on the right wing, and the puck is still free, now picked up by Bill White. And Bill White throws it behind the net into the near corner. DePappin can't hold it. Lemaire leads it over into the slot, popped up into the air, and Doug Jarrett just dumps it out to center ice, and it slides down into the Canadian zone. 45 seconds left on the penalty to Magnuson as the Canadiens come back. Harvey Richard carries to the far point, leading it back to the blue line. Kept in by LaPerriere. He apparently did not keep it in. He brought it back in for an offside play. 1:15 left on the penalty to Tremblay. And about 40 seconds left on the penalty to Keith Magnuson.
Billy Reay putting out Lou Angotti as you hear the sounds like booze, but it's really Lou's, along with Eric Nestorenko.
Face off outside the Hawk blue line on the near side of the rink. Henri Richard and Lou Angotti, and now Billy Reay is bringing Pat Stapleton back on the ice for Doug Jarrett. So you have Angotti, Nestorenko, Stapleton, and Bill White for Chicago. Angotti and Richard ready for the face-off. The draw won by Angotti. Back to Bill White in the Hawk zone. Bill White wheels around, being checked by Richard. Throws it to the far side, and off the far board, Lou Angotti starts skating it out. Poked away, but it comes right back to him. Out to the center line, Angotti moving on the left wing. Over the blue line, he dumps it down into the Canadian zone and takes forward. It's off the backboard and taken into the near corner to Lemaire. And Lemaire carries it out. Moving down the near side of the rink, he skates to the blue line. To the center line, Lemaire winding a long shot and a goal! Jacques Lemaire, from about 10 feet outside the Chicago Blackhawk blue line, wound up, and he hit a sizzling slap shot that went by Tony Esposito, and the score is now Chicago 2 and Montreal 1. Well, we've seen it before, Harvey, and I guess we'll see it again. But that was some kind of a shot by Lemaire.
It was a blistering shot, which he fired just outside the blue line and went up over the shoulder of Tony in the right-hand side of the net. A real fine shot. At handcuffed Tony. He might have been partially screened as one of the Hawk defensemen was backing up on the play and might have lost sight of it for a second, and in that split second was up and into the net, and it's almost a brand-new hockey game. It's
5, Jacques Lemaire.
Jacques Lemaire's goal.
Assisted by number 2, Jacques LaPerriere.
LaPerriere assisting.
At 14-18.
At
18, and that's Lemaire's 9th goal of the playoff series this year.
And the face-off at center ice, the draw back into the Canadian zone from the near side of the far side, and Harper at the center line of the Hawk blue line on the right wing. Harper carrying in deeper, throws it around the corner into the near corner, and Mahovlich centers, but is taken away by Nikita. Now the Blackhawks with power play hockey. Magnuson back on the ice. Power play hockey for 30 seconds. Dennis Hull around on the left wing, and the whistle blows for an offside play. So J.C. Tremblay, who went for hooking at 13:07, gives the Blackhawks the power play opportunity now. The Montreal Canadiens moving back into contention in this game, trailing now by a score of 2-1, thanks to the long center ice slap shot by Lemaire that got by Esposito at 14:18 to miss the second period. Nikita, Dennis Hull, Cliff Coral, Pat Stapleton, and Bobby Hull, the power play team for Chicago. Pete Mahovlich on the ice to face off with Nikita just outside the Canadian blue line on the far side of the rink to draw one to the Blackhawks. Coral to Stapleton, Stapleton at center ice. To the center line, leads to the Hawk, to the blue line of the Canadiens leading. On the left wing was Nikita. Dennis Hull, a turnaround shot is wide and off the near corner and dumped out to center ice, and Bobby Hull will have to retreat to the Hawk zone. Less than 15 seconds to go in the penalty. Dennis Hull from center ice. His lead is broken up by Pete Mahovlich and taken by Pete Mahovlich. Swept away by Dennis Hull back into the Canadian zone. To the stick of Dryden, and he drops it off to Perrier. The penalty is now over, and the teams are back at equal strength. Led to the Hawk blue line, Bobby Hull on the interception. To Nikita at the blue line, leading on the left wing to Dennis Hull. Dennis Hull, centering pass in front of Bobby Hull. A backhander, couldn't get the shot out away accurately. It comes back from Bobby Hull and grabbed by Dryden along the side of the cage to his left. 4 minutes and 40 seconds left to play in the second period. The Blackhawks 2, the Montreal Canadiens 1. The scoring was opened in the first period by Dennis Hull, a power play goal assisted by Bobby Hull and Cliff Coral at 19:12. The Hawks then took a 2-goal lead at 7:33 on a goal by O'Shea assisted by Martin, but the Canadiens came back at 14:18 on a long shot by Lemaire assisted by Perrier to get on the scoreboard.
That's the importance of checking those Canadiens, especially as they break towards the Blackhawk blue line. But Lemaire caught the Hawk defense just a little off guard as he let that shot fly from outside the blue line.
From the faceoff, a quick shot by Dennis Hull and a save by Dryden as he poked it to the far corner. Belleville leads it to J.C. Tremblay. The Canadiens back out to center ice. Tremblay to the center line, flipping it into the Chicago zone. A bouncing save by Esposito into the near corner, and Magnuson throwing it back to the far corner, but intercepted and back into the near corner. Now picked up by Ferguson, centering all the way through to the far board. Taken by J.C. Tremblay, just inside the blue line. A shot knocked down by Nikita. Nikita goes to the far board. Now to Dennis Hull. Dennis Hull to center ice. The Hawks 2-on-2. He's got Coral on the right wing. Dennis Hull moving into the slot, carrying into the right wing position, into the corner, trying to center it back. It's deflected away and dumped off the near board. And over the near board, and we'll have a puck and a face-off. With 4 minutes remaining to be played in the second period, Chicago 2, Montreal 1.
That goal giving the Canadiens new life, knocking the Hawk lead down in half, and let's hope we can make it a 2-goal lead before the end of this period. We've dominated play mostly in the second period, outside the first 5 minutes when we were men short.
Good ice position for Chicago. Pitt Martin will face off with Henri Richard to the left of Ken Dryden. And the draw. Back to the blue line, and Magnuson to the far side, and Jarrett. Jarrett a quick shot, broken up before it got to the goaltender, and the Canadiens come out to center ice, led by Richard. His lead on the left wing to Jacques Lemaire, but the whistle blows. Jacques Lemaire was offside on the left wing. Blackhawks have been penalized 4 times in this, the second period. Montreal penalized twice. In the first period, it was the Canadiens being penalized 3 times and the Chicago Blackhawks twice. All of the penalties in the game thus far have been minor calls. Jimmy Pappen from the draw at center ice, backhands it into the Canadian zone, stopped by Dryden for J.C. Tremblay. Picked up by Henri Richard, coming out on the left side, drops it back to Tremblay. Tremblay still inside his blue line, now skates it out to center ice, moving toward the far board. He dumps it into the Hawk zone. Around the far corner and behind the net. Magnuson into the near corner, and Jimmy Pappen off the near board. Scrapping for the puck. The puck is now whistled dead by John Ashley, and again we have a little pile-up off the near board of the Chicago zone. But even though they're crowding around there, everybody restraining themselves, this is no time for either club to give the other the advantage, Harvey.
That's for sure. A little pushing in there by Pappen and Lemaire, and they exchange a few words as they line up for this face-off. And now linesman John D'Amico is just getting in between them, trying to keep the tempers a little cool.
Ready for the face-off now to the right of Esposito. Hit Martin and Henri Richard. The draw up and a quick shot by Lemaire, broken up just as he got it underway. Now Stapleton under the stick of O'Shea, out to center ice, right back to the Hawk zone, and Bill White. Over lead, off the near board. Here's another quick shot from center ice by Lemaire, and this time Esposito saves. Along the far corner of the Hawk zone, as LaRose on the ice for the first time tonight tries to center the pass. O'Shea along the foul board. Couldn't get his stick away from Richard. Returns for the puck in the far corner and carries behind the net. Now LaRose breaks up the play. Now Bill White behind the net, throwing it around the near corner of the near board, and Jimmy Pappen. And Pappen leads out to center ice to O'Shea. O'Shea to the blue line, swept away by Harper, and up to center ice and off the far board of the Hawk zone and Stapleton. And we have 2 minutes and 45 seconds left to play in the second period. A long shot easily taken by Dryden, and he drops it off to LaRose. Led out to center ice to Lemaire. Lemaire to the center line, flipping into the Hawk blue line, broken up by Bill White. And back out to center ice, and now Terry Harper has it, brings it in on the left wing, and dumped into the near corner of the Hawk zone as the whistle has blown for the offside play. 2 minutes and 30 seconds remaining in the second period, 2-1 in favor of the Chicago Blackhawks.
Once again, with the lead down to 1 goal, both teams playing a little cautious. And for a while there, with the Hawks holding a 2-goal lead, the game opened up just a little bit.
Face-off will be outside the Hawk blue line on the near side of the rink. Bobby Hull, Chico Mackey, Cliff Corral, Doug Jarrett, and Keith Magnuson on the ice for Chicago. And Chico Mackey will face off with Pete Mahavlich. And the draw dumped into the Hawk zone, into the far corner, and the whistle blows. A false face-off will do it again. Jam-packed crowd at Chicago Stadium. You couldn't find an inch of room in here tonight. And what a season it has been. Sensational for the Chicago Blackhawks, champions of the Western Division, and here playing in the finals, the 7th game, the finals for Stanley Cup Championship. Out to center ice along the far board, Bobby Hull. He led it into the slot. It comes all the way into the near board of the Canadian zone. Intercepted by Ferguson. And now, both back out to center ice, and the Canadians come back 3-on-3. Right wing and Rajon Houle checked on the play beautifully. And we have a penalty coming up against Doug Jarrett. Another call against the Chicago Blackhawks, this time against Doug Jarrett. Ashley to the official's crease. The 5th penalty of the period against Chicago. Here's the announcement.
Doug Jarrett, 2 minutes for holding.
Holding.
At 17:54.
At 17:54.
Once again, the Canadiens getting a power play opportunity here in the second period. This will be their 4th power play opportunity, Lloyd, in one period. It's a lot of opportunities to give to a team like the Canadiens. Doug Jarrett threw a check into Houle, and it looked like a good check, but in the opinion of John Ashley, that after the check was delivered, apparently Doug grabbed a hold of Houle, and that's when he called the holding.
So the penalty killers by the Chicago Blackhawks are called upon again. A busy bunch in this game. Bobby Hull, Chico Mackey, Bill White, and Pat Stapleton face off just inside the Hawk blue line on the far side of the rink. Lemaire and Chico Mackey, the draw to Bill White. He backhands it out to center ice, and off the near board, taken by Lapointe. Lapointe leaves it ahead to Ferguson, broken up by Bill White, but picked up.
This station interrupts its regular programming to bring you emergency information from the National Weather Service. The National Weather Service has issued a tornado watch for portions of central and most of northern Illinois, portions of southern Wisconsin, a portion of northwest Indiana, a small portion of western lower Michigan, southern and central Lake Michigan, southeastern Iowa, and a portion of northeast Missouri. This includes the Chicago area. The threat of tornadoes will exist in these areas from now until 4 a.m. this morning and early Wednesday morning. A few severe thunderstorms with large hail and locally damaging winds are also forecast. The greatest threat of tornadoes and severe thunderstorms is in an area along and 70 miles either side of a line from 20 miles west of Quincy, Illinois to Muskegon, Michigan. Persons in or close to the tornado watch area are advised to be on the watch for local weather developments and for later statements and warnings. We return now to our regular program.
They're at equal strength now. Both clubs short a man. 2-1 in favor of the Chicago Blackhawks. Face-off will be outside the Chicago blue line on the far side of the rink. Angotti and Richard. The draw to the Blackhawks. Nesterenko being checked by Lemaire. Nesterenko throws it behind the net. It's off the side of the cage. Set it in front. A shot and a goal. Lemaire got that puck as it deflected off the side of the net, and he threw it to Henri Richard, who was wide open in front of the net. Richard poked it past Esposito, and this hockey game is all tied up 2-2. And there's the bounce for you, Harvey. That pass that was supposed to go behind the net came off the side of the net, right into perfect position for the centering pass.
Well, Tony never had a chance on it as that puck took a funny bounce off the boards. Lemaire got it, get it to Richard. Richard right out in front of the net. He had a whole net to shoot at. Tony couldn't stop him as the thing happened so quickly, and it's a brand new hockey game, 2-2.
Richard back into the Canadian zone from the faceoff. LaPerriere at center ice. 18:20, the time of the goal. Into the Chicago zone, Nesterenko behind the net. Into the far corner, being forechecked by Beliveau. Along that far board, the loose puck picked up by Makita. And Makita moves it back out past Beliveau. Gives to Stapleton out to center ice on the far side. Over the blue line on the left wing, Stapleton leading in front, and Nesterenko couldn't get his shot away. Here's Bill White with a shot, and deflected into the far corner. Now Nesterenko from the far corner. Off the far board, it comes right back to him. Nesterenko trying to center it. It comes back to him again. To Makita off the side of the net. Back to Nesterenko. Nesterenko inside the blue line with an air point and Bill White. Bill White winding a slap shot and a save. And no rebound for Chicago. There was an open net for LaPerriere. Picks up the loose puck. To center ice. To the Hawk blue line of the left wing. To Frank Mahovlich in front. Mahovlich can't get his shot away. And the puck is picked up by Stapleton, but he slips and falls down. Comes behind the net with possession. 40 seconds left to play in the period. 2-2 hockey game. Center ice play for Stapleton to the blue line. And he brings it on, but over the line before was Eric Nesterenko, and it's an offside play.
Canadians getting both their goals while each team had a man in the penalty box. 4 skaters out in front of the goalkeeper. And that bad bounce off the backboard really hurt. Let's hope we can bounce back, Lloyd. It's still anybody's hockey game. It's 2-2. We had the 2-goal lead, and we saw it dissipate here in the second period.
Jarrett and Ferguson still in the penalty box. When Jarrett comes out at 19:54, it'll be power play hockey for the Chicago Blackhawks. And unless they score within those 6 seconds, that power play opportunity will carry into the third period. Dennis Hull and Danny O'Shea for Chicago, Jacques Lemaire and Henri Richard for the Canadiens. Face-off outside the Canadian blue line on the near side. Center ice play for Magnuson to Stapleton on the far side. Back to Magnuson at the center line. Magnuson taking the long shot. Off the mark to the left side and picked up by Houle in the far corner. Houle moves behind the net. Jimmy Pappin checks him in the near corner. And Magnuson trying to break up the play. Slips, falls down, centered by Pappin. Back to Magnuson. Magnuson bringing it back to Stapleton. Stapleton with a bouncing puck. His shot broken up. And Stapleton trying to center. Gets it on his skate. Gives to Martin. Martin in front of shot. Deflected wide to the left side. And it goes into the far corner. That back out comes Ray-Jean Houle. Out to center ice along the far board, and he backhands it into the Hawk zone, and there it is. There is the end of the second period with the score. The Chicago Blackhawks 2, the Montreal Canadiens 2. We'll be back with our between periods show right after this. So the Chicago Blackhawks moved out to a 2-0 lead in the second period, but the Montreal Canadiens, fighting desperately, were able to move back into the game and tie it up 2-2. And here's the recap on the game thus far. In the first period, the opening goal was scored by Chicago's Dennis Hull, assisted by Bobby Hull and Cliff Coral at 19:12, a power play goal. Chicago outshot Montreal in the first period 12-6. In the second period at 7:33, Chicago's Danny O'Shea scored, assisted by Pitt Martin, to made it 2-0. Then at 14:18, the Canadians got on the scoreboard with a goal by Jacques Lemaire from center ice, a long slap shot, assisted by LaPerriere, making it 2-1. And at 18:20, Henri Richard on a fine lead pass from Lemaire put it past Tony Esposito, and they tied it up 2-2. Shots on goal in the second period, Montreal 9 for a two-period total of 15. Chicago 9 for a two-period total of 21. We pause 5 seconds for station identification.
This is WMAQ Chicago, where Jack Eigen talks from 10:30 until 1.
And we'll be back with replay of highlights of the game for you in just a moment. So now let's go to the replay of the highlights of our hockey game thus far tonight. And in order to do that, we drop back into the first period of 1912 when the Blackhawks took the lead. 55 seconds left to go in the period. Coral in the blue line. Back to Bobby Hull. Another slap shot, and it's wide. Dennis Hull, a shot, and a goal! Dryden, but it deflected off to the left wing. Dennis Hull was there. He took that powerful shot of his. He swept it at the Montreal net. It looked like it may have been deflected off a defenseman, but Dennis Hull, I believe, will be credited with the goal, and most important of all, the Blackhawks have the first goal and the lead, 1-0. And that's the way it was at the end of the first period, 1-0 in favor of the Chicago Blackhawks. And at 5:30 of the second period, Tony Esposito kept the Canadiens off the board. To the near point, LaPointe. To the far point of J.C. Tremblay. Back to the near point again, and Guy LaPointe. His shot right out in front of backhander, and a save by Esposito as he spun around and deflected the puck from right in front. As Jacques Lemaire had a great opportunity, but Esposito beat him. And play continued right up to this time then when Danny O'Shea came up with a beauty for Chicago. Loses control of the puck and goes to the foul board. Here's Gerald with a turnaround shot deflected to the backboard on the left side. Martin pokes it out in front. O'Shea, a shot to go! Continued until 14:18 of the second period, and then came the big surprise, a long bomb from center ice that beat Esposito. Lemaire carries it out. Moving down the near side of the rink, he skates to the blue line, to the center line. Lemaire winding a long shot and a goal! Jacques Lemaire from about 10 feet outside the Chicago Blackhawks blue line. Wound up, and he hit a sizzling slap shot that went by Tony Esposito, and the score is now Chicago 2 and Montreal 1. And the Canadiens continued to fight back, trailing by 1 goal. They moved into a tie with the Blackhawks at 18:20 of period number 2. To the Blackhawks, Nestorenko being checked by Lemaire. Nestorenko throws it behind the net. It's off the side of the cage, found in front, a shot and a goal! Lemaire got that puck as it deflected off the side of the net, and he threw it to Henri Richard, who was wide open in front of the net. Richard poked it past Esposito, and this hockey game is all tied up 2-2. And that's where we stand as our second intermission continues at Chicago Stadium. Lloyd Pennant reporting along with Harvey Wittenberg. WMAQ 670, Chicago Stadium, 2-2 at the end of 2. We'll be back to talk about tonight's game with Harvey right after this word. Well, Harvey, with the Canadiens coming back to tie it up 2-2, their heads have got to be up. They've got to be elated in anticipating the third period, and I'm sure the Chicago Blackhawks have recognized that they, too, can jump out in front and take the lead. So right at this moment, it's anybody's hockey game. It should be some third period.
Should be a whale of a third period, Lloyd. Kind of reminds us a little bit of the New York Ranger game, the seventh and deciding game here at the stadium, where we took the lead. The Rangers tied it on... I don't want to say a fluky type goal, but an error, a funny bounce of the puck. And then in the last period, the Hawks came on to win. So we certainly hope that will prevail here when we start the second period. Ferguson of the Canadiens will have 11 seconds remaining to serve in a minor penalty. But just a couple bad bounces, that long shot. And, you know, Tony hasn't been beat on more than 2 or 3 shots like that all season. It took a little dip on him. And I think it was just partially screened for a moment. He lost sight of the puck and went over his shoulder in the right-hand corner of the net. We had some opportunities earlier in the period when we had a 2-0 lead with Cliff Coral and Mackey on a 2-on-1 breakaway. and before O'Shea got his goal, he had bounced one off the post. So far, it's been two kind of breaks for the Canadiens to get their 2 goals. Well, we've worked a little harder on our 2, so if we can keep working hard in that third period and keep the pressure on, but here's the whole season boiled down to 1 period of hockey now. It's 2-2. It's anybody's hockey game, and it shows you how great these 2 hockey clubs are.
Well, I was most amazed, I believe you recall, in reporting that long shot by Lemaire. Tony Esposito came out of the net a little bit, and he appeared to move his glove up just at the last second, Harvey. And I suppose after this game is over, we'll find out from Tony that maybe just for the split second, he may have lost sight of it. And of course, with that kind of a sizzling slap shot off the stick of Lemaire, if you lose sight of it for 1 second, you're in trouble. I think we also will find out after this game is over that Eric Nestorenko, being checked by Lemaire in the Chicago Blackhawks zone, had control of the puck, and then Lemaire, Nestorenko, in trying to center that puck, or center it, throw it behind the net, it bounced off it a little bit strange, came off the side of the cage, right onto the stick of Lemaire, and he flipped it to Richard. He was wide open in front of the cage. So as we say, these are the kind of moves that can win a game for you. These are the kind of moves that can lose a game for you.
Well, it's just a matter that the Hawks are going to have to work in that last period and really come out and try to take control. And both teams are going to be waiting for an opportunity, and they'll be a little cautious because you don't want to open yourself up to a mistake and give the other team an advantage.
And the Blackhawks, speaking of an advantage, will have one right at the start of the third period, right, Harv?
Well, for 11 seconds, Ferguson will serve in his holding penalty. The Canadiens' power play, the Hawks have been able to bottle them up, but it's just when each team has had a man in the penalty box and one man short on the ice when the Canadiens have gotten both of their goals.
Well, the Blackhawks in that second period were penalized 5 times, while the Montreal Canadiens were penalized 3 times. And it's pretty tough to not only maintain a lead under those circumstances, but it's difficult to score those short-handed goals. So as far as the penalty category in the second period is concerned, it went definitely to the Montreal Canadiens. The goaltenders, Tony Esposito, especially, I believe, Harvey, and we've made this observation, Tony Esposito, when he has the chance to rest, really rests. He hangs that head down. It looks like Tony might be pretty well beat by now. He's gone all the way for the Blackhawks, and that's some kind of a requirement.
Well, the pressure's on. We just have a backup goalie, Ken Brown, who he's only played part of 1 period in the NHL. And, but we have to say Ken Dryden, a rookie who's come in here in his first year and played the last 6 games of the regular season and gone right through and played 20 Stanley Cup games, set a new record for most minutes played by a goaltender in any one playoff year. And he's done a great job for Montreal.
And once again, we have a situation with the score tied going into the third period where the 2 coaches for these 2 teams, again, must make a decision in whatever advice they give to their players. And would that advice, again, be moving into a cautious situation and taking the break when you get the chance?
Well, I would think so. You can't afford to make a mistake here, especially now when the score is tied and 20 minutes of hockey and regulation time remaining. You've got to be very careful. You've got to pick your opportunities. But if the Hawks continue their strong forechecking and keep moving that puck around and keep controlling that puck, I think we can come out on top.
Well, I'll tell you, there are an awful lot of fans here at Chicago Stadium who are looking forward to exactly that, Harvey. These are the fans that have been supporting the Chicago Blackhawks solidly throughout the year, and I'll tell you, they are some kind of people. They have supported this club throughout this year and for many, many years, and a lot of them that you and I both know, back in the days when things were not really going too well for the Chicago Blackhawks, supported them then. And I think that they are, by all means, to be afforded a congratulation for their support.
Well, they've been behind us all the way, and I'm sure when the Hawks come out here in the third period, they're once again going to rise to their feet and give the Hawks a standing ovation.
All right, we've been talking with Harvey Wittenberg here at the second intermission at Chicago Stadium with the Blackhawks and the Montreal Canadiens all tied up 2-2 in Game 7, the final game of the Stanley Cup competition for 1971. And we'll be back with the start of the third period for you right after this. So an interesting third period of hockey coming up, to say the least. The whistle has been blown, and we will have the face-off off at center ice shortly as soon as those not actually involved in play head to the bench. And the announcement that John Ferguson of Montreal has 11 seconds remaining on his holding penalty, a carryover from the second period. So Nikita will be on the ice for Chicago along with Dennis Hull, Eric Nestorenko, Bill White, and Pat Stapleton. Nikita, when the faceoff is ready, will be facing Pete Mahovlich. Frank Mahovlich on the left wing. Guy Lapointe will one of the defensemen, and the other defenseman is Jacques Laperriere. Penalty killing team for the Canadiens. Canadiens moving from left to right. Chicago, of course, in the other direction in the opening faceoff of the third period. Won by the Canadiens. Lapointe dumps it down to the Hawk zone. Around the near corner behind the Hawk bench. Bill White off the stick of Esposito. Gives to the near side and Stapleton. Stapleton ahead to Dennis Hull. Dennis Hull to Nikita. Nikita to the blue line. Nikita into the slot. His shot deflected by Laperriere, and somebody has a souvenir. And the penalty to Ferguson is over. Just underway with the third period. Hawks will have good ice position for the upcoming face-off in the Canadian zone, almost in the slot position. It'll be Stan Nikita facing off against the Canadian captain, Jean Beliveau. Waiting for John to make over the linesman to drop the puck. And the face-off. The draw goes to the backboard of the Canadian zone. Laperriere carries into the far corner. Leads it ahead to Beliveau. Beliveau skating it out to center ice. At the center line, dumps it into the Hawk zone. Poked at by Dennis Hull. A bouncing puck out of the stick of Nestorenko into the far corner. And Nestorenko dumps it out to center ice to Laperriere. Laperriere flipping it back into the Hawk zone. Around the near corner. Whitey Stapleton has it on his stick, and he moves behind the net. Coming out on the right side. Gives to Bill White. Bill White at the Hawk blue line. Carrying it out to the center line. Bill White to the blue line and almost collides with one of his own teammates. Bill White trying to center. Deflected away. Here's Dennis Hull. The shot broken up. And on the rebound, he pokes it to the backboard, but it's picked up by Laperriere. Dennis Hull's shot was broken by Harper. And off the near board of the Canadian zone, brought out to center ice. Stapleton intercepting and giving to Dennis Hull on the left wing at center ice. Dennis Hull couldn't find the puck, and it's picked up by Harper and dumped back into the Hawk zone. Stapleton to the far side and Bill White. Bill White's lead deflected to Nestorenko, poked away from him. Now Beliveau in his own zone, moving toward the near board. Being forechecked by Nikita. Beliveau leads it out to center ice to the far board and back into the Hawk zone, and Bill White is there for Chicago. He moves behind the net and comes out on the left side. To Stapleton on the near side of the Hawk zone. He's out to the blue line. His pass broken up by Frank Mahovlich. His pass in turn intercepted by Bill White on the near side at center ice. Led ahead to Dennis Hull, but under his stick and all the way down to the Canadian zone. Touched there by Guy Lapointe. It's an icing call against Chicago. The puck will return to the Chicago zone.
You can't afford a big car because a full-size Pontiac is only $57 more than America's most popular lightweight car. Minute and 36 gone by here in the third period. It's all tied up 2-2.
And they're still having trouble with that rough spot on the ice in the Chicago zone. In the face-off circle off to the right of Tony Esposito. John Ashley scraping some shavings into the hole with his skate as it's being smoothed down by John D'Amico. Bobby Hull, Chico Mackey, Cliff Coral, Keith Magnuson, and Doug Jarrett on the ice for Chicago as the crowd here at Chicago Stadium comes alive, urging the Blackhawks on to see if they can win their first Stanley Cup championship in 10 years. Face off to the left of Esposito, the draw. Back to Jarrett. Jarrett in the near corner, off the near board, poked at by Bobby Hull. J.C. Tremblay leading in front. Popped up into the air and off the side of the cage. The shot by Hull. Another shot to save by Esposito as he beat Ferguson from short range. And Bobby Hull out to center ice loses control of the puck as he was checked from the rear. And the puck in the Canadian zone picked up by J.C. Tremblay. Tremblay to the center line. Led into the Hawk zone around the near corner. It hits something there and it stops dead. Bobby Hull can't hold it off the near board. Led to Pete Mahovlich. He can't hold it as the puck is picked up by Coral. Out to center ice and Chico Mackey. Chico Mackey leading to Bobby Hull. It's off the skate of Hull and dumped back to center ice and Magnuson. To the near side and Jarrett. Jarrett back to the blue line of Bobby Hull. Bobby Hull, a wrist shot and broken up. Another quick shot and trying to tip in was Chico Mackey and it went by to the left side. And poked into the near corner. Still in the Canadian zone. Dumped out to the Canadian blue line to Rajon Hull. Leading to Henri Richard on the left wing. Henri Richard coming out in front. A shot and a goal! Henri Richard was wide open at the Hawk blue line. He came in on the left wing past Magnuson. He moved in front of the net after drawing Esposito over and he poked it home. And the Montreal Canadiens have the lead over the Chicago Blackhawks 3-2. And And it's a quiet crowd at Chicago Stadium right this moment, as it well must be. But these Blackhawks have been behind in a game before, and they could come back. Canadiens 3, the Blackhawks 2. Face off at center ice. The draw back into the Hawk zone. Onto the stick of Esposito, turned over to Bill White. Bill White behind the net. Bill White looking out, throwing it out to Martin. Martin tips it ahead to Pappen, out to center ice along the far board. Pappen winding a slap shot wide to the right side and off the near board. Picked up by O'Shea. A shot broken up, poked at by Martin, but deflected to the stick of Henri Richard, and he dumps it out to center ice. And on the near side, Stapleton retreating into the Hawk zone to the far side, and Bill White led to center ice. Henri Richard intercepts again and dumps it to the Hawk blue line. Here's the there with a shot and a save by Esposito. A fine save by Tony Esposito. And now here's the official announcement on the goal. Henri Richard, his second goal of the game. Poole assisting. Lapointe assisting.
2:34.
At 2:34.
On that goal, Lloyd, Richard was just coming off the bench fresh as the Canadiens changed on the fly, and Keith Magnuson was back on the fence, didn't see Richard as he got that perfect pass, and being fresh off the bench, he came in with a full head of steam and on Tony Esposito.
Face off to the right of Esposito. The draw won by no one at the moment. Now taken by the Canadiens. Quick shot turned aside by Esposito. That was off the stick of LaRose. Into the far corner it goes. Digging for it, Bill White takes it off. Pappen can't clear it. Back to Harper. Harper's shot partially deflected, taken by Stapleton off the near board. And poked that out to center ice, taken by Henri Richard. On the near board, jumps it into the Hawk zone, and Stapleton to Martin. Martin at the center line, leading on the right wing and leading it too high. Intended for Jimmy Pappen. It goes over the board on the far side and up into the crowd.
Millions of motorists rely on STP every day. Add a can to your oil and run smoother, cooler, quieter, longer. STP is the racer's edge.
And we'll be back with more in just a moment. Face off at center ice, and a bouncing puck to Dennis Hull. He dumps it into the Canadian zone on the interception. Lapointe throws it out to center ice and led to the Hawk blue line. And coming out is Esposito. Swept up into the air off the stick of Cournoyer as the puck is poked to the far side, and Nestorenko. His pass intercepted by Tremblay. Thrown back into the far corner of the Hawk zone. Into the near corner of Jarrett. Jarrett ahead to Dennis Hull along the near board. Leads to Makita at the center line. Makita to the blue line. Makita moving into the slot right wing. Nestorenko, a shot, and it's high and wide to the right side. And off the near board. A great opportunity for the Hawks and Nestorenko. Dumped back into the Canadian zone, and it's an offside play.
Once again, Stan Makita had a perfect feed to Eric. And Eric, trying for the upper corner, fired it over the top of the net as he was sailing in on the right side.
4 minutes and 5 seconds into the third period. 3-2 in favor of the Canadiens. They've scored 3 straight goals from the second period on. Lemaire, Richard, and Richard. Center ice play for Jarrett. Dumps it into the Canadian zone. Knocked down by Tremblay. And Tremblay goes behind the net, coming out on the left side. Leads to Beliveau. Beliveau off the far side. Out to center ice. To the center line to Frank Mahovlich. Mahovlich over the Hawk blue line. Moving into the slot. His shot broken up by Jarrett. Jarrett clears it back out to center ice. Poked at by Makita. And swatted at off the near board, but picked up by Cournoyer. Swept away by Doug Jarrett. Out to center ice. Far board and Nestorenko. He swats at it, but cannot get it into the Canadian zone. Now it's deflected down to the Canadian zone. Deflected out to center ice, and Cournoyer off the near side. And dumped out to center ice off the stick of Beliveau into the Hawk zone and picked up by Magnuson. Magnuson skating it right straight out. Leads on the left wing to Dennis Hull at center ice. To Nestorenko on the right wing. Then poked down to the Canadian zone. Intercepting is LaPerriere. Into the near corner. LaPerriere receives a solid check from Nestorenko to the loose puck taken by Houle. Moves out on the left side and throws to Pete Mahovlich down the far board, out to center ice to the Hawk blue line. Pete Mahovlich trying to break through. He can't get by Magnuson. Stapleton has the puck, but it's stolen away from him by Houle. And Houle takes the shot, but it goes behind the net and comes off onto the near board. Still in the Hawk zone. Fought for by Bobby Hull, and the whistle blows. We'll have a face-off in the Chicago zone as Bobby Hull and Pete Mahovlich give each other a couple of unkind stares.
Chico Mackey getting some equipment affairs over by the Blackhawk bench. And looks like Ted Martin will take Chico's place on the line here. 5 minutes, 18 seconds gone by here in period number 3. We're down 3-2.
Martin on the ice to face off with Pete Mahovlich to the left of Tony Esposito. And the draw back into the near corner of the Hawk zone taken by Stapleton. Stapleton moving behind the net. And out on the right side, continues to carry. Stapleton moving it out of the Hawk zone, leads to Coral at the center line to Bobby Hull over the blue line. Bobby Hull on the left wing. His shot partially deflected as he got it started. And we have a penalty coming up. A hook call against the Montreal Canadiens. We'll be back with more after this. So the Blackhawks with power play hockey, and Harvey, if they come up with a power play goal, The reaction at Chicago Stadium is going to be frightening.
Well, we have the opportunity now. Let's hope we can capitalize on it. Make it a brand new hockey game. The face-off will be in the Canadian zone to the left of Ken Dryden. Pitt Martin out there with Jimmy Pappin and Chico Mackey. Bobby Hull and Pat Stapleton back at the point.
Beliveau and Martin on the face-off. Back to Bobby Hull. Bobby Hull leading to the right wing. Pappin, we can get back to the blue line. Now to Bobby Hull. Bobby Hull lost position on the shot. And poked back to the blue line and Stapleton. Stapleton leads it off the near board in the near corner, and Chico Mackey throws behind the net to Pappin, deflects away from him, and Pete Mahovlich clears the zone. Esposito touching the puck for Stapleton behind the Hawk net. Power play hockey. The rush is on. As Stapleton leads to his blue line, leads to Bobby Hull at the center line. Over the blue line on the left wing, and Bobby Hull moving on. Goes behind the net, carries to the far side, centering in front. Chico Mackey with a shot, hits wide to the left side. Martin centers in front. Another shot, deflected to the far corner, and picked off the far board by Pappin and led back out to center ice. And Frank Mahovlich has it at center ice. Wheeling it off the far board, takes the check. Jimmy Pappin tried to take the puck away from him. Chico Mackey does, and now Pappin has it, leads ahead to Martin on the left wing at the blue line. Martin moving in a little deeper, carrying into the corner, centering in front, and Pappin gets the shot away, but it's deflected wide to the right side. Back to the blue line and Stapleton to Bobby Hull. Bobby Hull couldn't get his shot away. He was checked immediately. And out to center ice. 50 seconds left in the penalty. Chico Mackey on the left wing over the blue line of the Canadiens. Chico Mackey moving in deeper. His centering pass intercepted by LaPointe, and LaPointe clears. Back into the Hawk zone to the stick of Esposito to Stapleton. Stapleton out to center ice to the center line. Leading to Bobby Hull. Deflected Bobby Hull. His back shot, and it's wide to the right side. It just missed the goal post by an inch or so. Poked behind the net into the near corner. Now Stapleton poking a little bit deeper. LaPointe breaks up the play, and LaPointe clears off the body of Rochefort. Down into the Chicago zone and Esposito. 20 seconds left in the penalty. Into the near corner of the Hawk zone. Let out to Nikita. Nikita at his blue line. Moving to the center line. Nikita winding at the blue line. A flat shot and a save. Here's a rebound by Dennis Hull. It's wide to the right side. And Nikita couldn't get the tip in as the puck is dumped out to Pete Mahovlich at center ice. One-on-one. He's got Stapleton to beat. Led to the stick of Esposito. And he clears it out to Bobby Hull. Penalty almost over. At center ice, Bobby Hull is put down by Mahovlich. And the Blackhawks get a real break. And Pete Mahovlich is just going to go for a 10-minute misconduct. He threw his glove up into the air right after the penalty was called, and Pete Mahovlich will have to sit for 12. And we'll be back with more in a moment. Well, I guess these eyes are deceiving me. Pete Mahovlich goes for 2 minutes for hooking. I thought for sure I saw John Ashley put his hands on the hips when Mahovlich's glove went up in the air, disputing the call.
It looked like that, Lloyd. Mahovlich got the penalty call, and he hooked Bobby Hull down from behind. And it looked like Ashley, when he saw him throw the glove up, put his hands on his hips, but apparently not. Just a 2-minute penalty, but we have the power play opportunity, and once again, let's see if we can test Ken Dryden for the Canadiens.
Well, the Blackhawks have the power play opportunity while Harper was in for hooking at 5:32. Then he came out, and he was out for just 5 seconds when Mahovlich hooked Bobby Hull. So the Blackhawks once again will have the manpower advantage and the benefit of ice position in the Canadian zone. The face-off to Bobby Hull along the blue line. Bobby Hull winding a slap shot, broken up, and deflects out to center ice. Taken by Frank Mahovlich. Frank Mahovlich to the Hawk blue line. Mahovlich leading in front, and it goes out of the stick of Esposito and cleared into the near corner. Poked at by Bobby Hull. Rochefort steals away. Rochefort coming out. Esposito comes out, pokes it away from Rochefort. Picked up by Bobby Hull. Led out off the near board to center ice and Martin. And Martin's pass intended for Stapleton deflected back into the Chicago Blackhawks zone. Picked up by Bobby Hull to Stapleton on the near side. Out to center ice. Stapleton on the left wing to Chico Mackey. His play is broken at the blue line along the near board. Brought back in, and we have a face-off.
Here are three who are sure to make the team. Leon Bratwurst, Polish sausage and wieners. Leon sausages score every time. Available at your Elm Farm, Hillman Food Stores, and your local independent grocer.
3-2 in favor of the Montreal Canadiens. The Blackhawks with power play hockey. About 1 minute and 20 seconds left on the penalty to Pete Mahovlich for hooking Bobby Hull. Face-off outside the Canadian blue line on the near side of the rink. Bobby Hull at center ice to the near side, and Stapleton leading to the blue line. Nikita's pass intended for Carl, poked away by J.C. Tremblay, and Tremblay clears it out of the rink on the far side.
It's a good lead pass by Stan Mikita, but The Canadian defenseman just got his stick on it and deflected away from Cliff before he can get control.
Face off to the left of Ken Dryden. Stan Mikita ready to face off with Jacques Lemaire. The draw to Dennis Hull. Throws to the far board, and Bobby Hull throws it around the far corner. Mikita digs forward with J.C. Tremblay. Tremblay is checked on the play. Goes to the far corner without a stick. Trying to dig it off there is Mikita. Out of the side of Ashley. The whistle blows. Will again have a face-off in the Canadian zone. Dennis Hull and Danny O'Shea, goal scorers for Chicago. 2 goals by Henri Richard of Montreal. The other goal by Lemaire. Richard has gotten the last 2. 1 minute left on the penalty to Pete Mahovlich. Blackhawks trying desperately while they have the manpower advantage to get back into a tie game. Off the far board, Bobby Hull throwing it around the far corner. J.C. Tremblay is there to intercept it again, and he and Mikita dig forward on the far board. Tremblay trying to hold it on the board, is finally dug out, but the whistle has already blown. We'll have another face-off in the Canadian zone, and all of this thing is time-consuming. And J.C. Tremblay has had the puck more than the Blackhawks in this last penalty period.
Well, he's been controlling it along the boards and trying to kill off the clock as much as he can before the whistle is blown.
Mikita and Lemaire again facing off to the left of Ken Dryden. And the draw to Dennis Hull. Back to the blue line of Stapleton. Stapleton leading it in. The save by Dryden. Into the near corner goes the rebound. Coral digging for it along with Harper. Coral trying to get his stick down on it. Kicks it to Mikita. Mikita flipping it around the near corner, and Coral digs for it, but he's checked out of the play by Harper. Now back to the near point of Stapleton. Stapleton, they shot, and a save by Dryden. Coral trying to center it. Goes behind the net to the far corner, and J.C. Tremblay clears. 30 seconds remaining on the penalty. Off the stick of Esposito, taken by Stapleton. Stapleton skating it right straight out and slowly to his blue line, to the center line, and Stapleton to Bobby Hull. Bobby Hull over the blue line right in front, and a whistle blows for an offside play, and Jimmy Pappin complains on the call to linesman John D'Amico. 16 seconds left on the penalty. The face-off will be outside the Canadian blue line on the far side of the rink. We are 9 minutes and 17 seconds into the third period, with the Canadians leading 3-2.
Once again with the crowd, we didn't hear the whistle. Looked like the Hawks had a good break into the Canadian zone.
Lemaire will face off with Pip Martin outside the Canadian blue line on the far side of the rink. And the draw deflected to Stapleton. Stapleton from center ice. A long shot and a save by Dryden. The rebound off the near board. And picked up now by Rochefort. Rochefort leading ahead, intended for Lemaire. Ridden out of the play, but it's in the Hawk zone and delayed enough to create an offside at the Chicago Blackhawks blue line. And the penalty to Pete Mahovlich is almost over.
It's Sukasa for exciting Mexican food, refreshments, and entertainment. That's Sukasa, 49 East Ontario. That's about 8 seconds, as we mentioned, Lloyd, on the penalty to Pete Mahovlich. We've had good opportunities, but we just haven't been able to dent the nets here in the third period. Canadians leading 3-2.
A comparatively quiet Chicago Stadium at the moment. Face-off outside the Hawk blue line, the draw to the Blackhawks. Jarrett inside the blue line to the far side, and Magnuson out to the center line. And Magnuson dumps it down into the Canadian zone, off the near corner, picked up by Martin. Martin moving in, a shot is wide to the right side. It goes to the far corner of the rebound. The Blackhawks not being able to get the rebounds after their shots. The penalty is over. Martin at center ice to the blue line. He is checked from the side. The loose puck goes into the far corner, and Jacques Laperriere. Laperriere's pass comes off the side of the cage, right in front. Poked that in, deflected up in the air. Jimmy Pappin had an open net. Magnuson with a shot, a rebound on a save by Dryden, and back into the slot. And Mahovlich as the Canadians come back. And the Blackhawks were just a matter of inches on 2 or 3 opportunities. Broken up by O'Shea in his own zone, out to center ice, 2-on-2 to the blue line. A shot and a save by Dryden. He got that one with the left skate and led back to center ice. Brought on by Mikita. His slap shot deflected over the glass and into the crowd behind Ken Dryden. Spectacular action. The Blackhawks pressing for all they're worth, and the Canadians defending for all they're worth.
Looks like Jimmy Pappin might have had one of those things. It was just an inch or so away from banging that puck in the net, and it just wouldn't go in. Just past the halfway mark here in the third period. We played 10 minutes and about 22 seconds. Both teams change lines again. The Mikita line out there for the Hawks with Coral and Dennis Hull.
And the Blackhawks have had the best of it here in the third period, thanks to penalty call against the Canadians. Harper at 5:32, and then Pete Mahovlich at 7:37. But possession now to the Canadians as the teams are at equal strength to Houle. He dumps it into the Hawk zone off the far corner. Poked around to the near corner by Stapleton. Off the near board to Dennis Hull. His lead-out pass taken by Bill White on the deflection of Makita at the blue line. Makita leading on the right wing, and Coral overescapes the puck into the far corner. Coral back to White. Poked away from White. And Pete Mahavlich comes back down the far boards over the blue line on the left wing. Fakes his slap shot. And Mahavlich loses control of the puck. Now he controls it. Throws it into the near corner to Rajon Hull. And Hull leading in front. And deflected away. Popped up into the air and taken out of there by Stapleton. And Stapleton leads it out to center ice, intended for Dennis Hull, but deflected away from him. Onto the stick of Dryden. And now the point coming out of the left side. 11 minutes are gone here in the third period. 3-2 in favor of the Canadiens. Backhanded into the Chicago zone. And off that far corner, Jerry Pinder on the ice for the first time. Throws it back to the far corner, but Mahavlich is there trying to center it. Poked away by Bill White, taken by Pinder. Pinder in the Hawk zone on the far side, out to center ice, to the center line. Pinder at the blue line, a slap shot, and a save by Dryden. And Pinder on his rebound, puts it into the crease, but it's deflected to the near board of the Canadian zone. That fought for on the near board and dumped out to center ice. And picked up by Beliveau. Belivo's pass intercepted by Pinder, and Pinder inside the Hawk blue line on the near side of the rink leads to Chico Mackey at center ice, and he's overled as the puck is broken up and back to the center line, and Stapleton right to the blue line on the near side and taken by Stapleton. He has to retreat back to the center line. Leads on the left wing, intended for Bobby Hull, but it's dumped all the way into the Canadian zone and stopped by Dryden. For Harper, throws it back along the near board, and Cournoyer skates it out to the center lines. Cournoyer to the Hawk blue line, leading on the left wing, and Pinder breaks up the play and carries to the far corner. Throws it behind the Hawk net to the near corner, and Stapleton. And Whitey Stapleton slowly back to the Hawk blue line, out to center ice, leading to Chico Mackey. He tips it down into the near corner. Bobby Hull digs, but Harper is there, and Hull checks Harper in the far corner. Bobby Hull checked from both sides. Loose puck along the far board of the Canadian zone. And dug out. And the Canadians come roaring back. Led by Lemaire to the center line of the Hawk blue line. And carries it, gives to LaRose. LaRose with a shot. A save, a rebound, another save by Tony Esposito. Tremendous move in beating the Canadians. And back to center ice. A long shot by Lemaire. And this time Esposito knocks that long shot down. Into the far corner of the Hawk zone. And Pappen behind the net to Bill White. And Bill White skating it out of the Hawk zone, leading ahead, and deflected off the stick of Martin into the Canadian zone on the near side. J.C. Tremblay out to center ice, and Henri Richard throwing to the far side, but broken up by Martin. Martin ahead to O'Shea. O'Shea on the right wing to Pappen, winding a slap shot, and it's wide to the left side, and off the near board. LaRose out to center ice as Martin breaks up his play. And Martin has it swept away from him by J.C. Tremblay, and it's picked up by LaRose. He throws it off the far board into the Hawk zone, and the whistle blows an offside play.
Well, tension continues to mount here. We've got 7 minutes and about 45 seconds left to go in regulation time. Canadians holding a 3-2 lead. The Hawks have had most of the action here in the third period, but we haven't been able to score on Dryden.
The lead goal in the game scored at 2:34 of this, the third period, by Henri Richard, his second of the game, assisted by Rajon Hull and Guy Lapointe. Upcoming face-off will be at center ice. Dennis Hull and Danny O'Shea have scored for Chicago. Richard twice and Lemaire once for the Canadiens. From the face-off, dumped into the Hawk zone, a far corner, and Magnuson. Magnuson behind the net, coming out on the left side, gives to the near side, and Jarrett ahead to O'Shea at center ice. And O'Shea dumping it into the Canadian zone, stopped by Dryden, and Dryden throws it into the far corner, and Ferguson pokes at it to Lapointe. Brings it back out to center ice to beat Mahavlich, and Mahavlich dumps it down into the Chicago zone. Near corner, and Doug Jarrett. And Jarrett out to center ice to Pitt Martin. 2-on-2. Martin to the blue line, moving into the slot position, leaves it for Pappen. Pappen leading it into the slot, but it's cleared away by Lapointe. And led back off the near board, taken by Ferguson to the center line, to the Hawk blue line. Ferguson, a shot broken up off the skate of Jarrett. And into the far corner goes Magnuson. Into the near corner to Jarrett. And Jarrett leads ahead, but overleads O'Shea. Interception at center ice for J.C. Tremblay. Throws to the far side. We have 6 minutes remaining in regulation time. 3-2 in favor of the Canadiens. Magnuson intercepts on the far side, but brings it over the blue line before Makita was able to clear, and it's an offside play. Only 2 penalties in the third period thus far, both against Montreal. Harper went for hooking, and Pete Mahavlich went for hooking.
A lot of tired hockey players out there. It's been a long and rough season, and it's been a rugged game here tonight. Both teams giving everything they've got.
Makita and Beliveau facing off outside the blue line of Montreal on the far side. Dumped in by Coral. Off the backboard, taken by Dryden. The side of the cage, and Harper coming out on the left side. Throws it off the far board. Canadians move it out to center ice. Led ahead by Frank Mahavlich to the Hawk blue line, and Dennis Hull steals. And Dennis Hull has possession at his blue line. Out to center ice, check from the side. He gives to Coral. Coral moving toward the near board. His pass is stolen by Cournoyer and dumped back into the Chicago zone. Picked up by Bill White. Bill White behind the net. Bill White off to the near side, and Whitey Stapleton led ahead at center ice to Cliff Coral. Poked at by Coral on the right wing. Coral dropping it back to Makita, and it's intercepted by Harper. Harper throws it around the near corner. Off the near board. Here's Stapleton with a shot wide to the right side. Now Bill White from the far side. A shot wide. It goes behind the net, comes off the near board. Stapleton with another shot. Broken up before it got to the goaltender, and it is intentionally iced by the Canadiens. Bill White back in the Hawk zone to touch it. Icing call against Montreal.
Once again, the Hawks had the puck moving well, but we just couldn't get a clear shot right on Dryden. As the Canadiens were bunched out in front in case any shot did come to try and deflect it away. Once again, the teams changed lines. With 4 minutes and 57 seconds left in the regulation time, Canadiens leading 3-2.
And Ken Dryden has been a busy fellow the last 5 or 6 minutes.
The Hawks have been peppering him. Chico Mackey's once again is going to try and get that draw to Bobby.
And he will be facing off with Pete Mahavlich to the right of Ken Dryden. And the draw to the Canadiens. Picked up by Rajon Houle. Out to center ice. To the center line down the near boards. Over the Hawk blue line. Trying to beat Jarrett. He does beat him. Gets the shot away. And it's wide to the right side. Picked up by Bobby Hull. Led back out to center ice. Chico Mackey to the right wing. Jerry Pinder winding a slap shot and a save by Dryden. And clear to the far corner and off the far board. Magnuson collides with Ferguson. Loose puck picked up by Pinder. Pinder trying to center it. He does, but it's intercepted right in front of the net by Pete Mahavlich. And Pete Mahavlich back to the center line. Flipping it into the Hawk zone. Onto the stick of Esposito for Jarrett. And Jarrett in the Hawk zone on the far side, dropping it back to Magnuson. Magnuson skating it ahead to Bobby Hull out to center ice, to the center line. Bobby Hull to the blue line. On the left wing, poked away from him and dumped back out to center ice. And Jarrett's pass comes right back to him. And he throws it to the blue line. Intercepted and passed now to Chico Mackey on the right wing. The whistle blows for an offside play as Pinder got the puck.
Once again, a new line comes out as they're changing almost every 30 or 40 seconds. We have 4 minutes and about 11 or 12 seconds left to go here in regulation time. Canadiens leading 3-2 on a third period goal by Honor Richard, his second of the game.
And the crowd beginning to come alive here, hoping the Blackhawks can get back in it. Center ice play for Stapleton. Long bouncing save by Dryden, but the whistle blew. One of the Hawks was over the line and before the puck came on. So back out to center ice it comes. 3-2 in favor of the Montreal Canadiens. This is it. The final effort on the part of the Chicago Blackhawks and the Montreal Canadiens for the 1970-71 season and for all the silverware of the Stanley Cup Championship. The Hawks led 2-0 at one time in the game. The Canadiens have scored 3 straight goals. Dumped into the Hawk zone and Bill White off the far board. Leads to Papin. Papin deflects it back to Stapleton. Stapleton ahead to O'Shea. Deflected off of his skate down into the Canadian zone. Onto the stick of Dryden, and Dryden just gathers in the puck as it slides right to the corner of his crease. So the Hawks gain a few feet of ice and will have a good position for the upcoming faceoff. Time, of course, becoming a factor now for the Chicago Blackhawks. O'Shea, but picked up by Richard. Richard retreating at the center ice. Richard throws it off the near board, and LaRose can't hold it. Picked up by Stapleton. Stapleton at center ice. Leads to Martin. Deflected away from him, but taken by O'Shea, and poked away from him and back out to center ice. The Canadiens just playing defense now. Looking for that opening break if they can find it, but at the moment they just want to contain the Blackhawks. Bill White dumps it back into the Canadian zone from center ice, behind the net to Dryden.
Boiled down, we're just under 3 minutes. The Hawks need a goal to tie.
And now it's good ice position for the Montreal Canadiens. Face-off will be to the right of Esposito, Makita, and Beliveau. And once again, the crowd roars, trying to get the Blackhawks on the scoreboard here to tie it up. Magnuson in the Hawk zone right in front of his net. Gives to the near side of Jarrett. Out to center ice. Makita's pass comes to him. On the bounce. Now Dennis Hull leading to the far side. And Coral wanting to center. He does in front, but cleared away by Beliveau. Coral leads it out. Magnuson breaking up the play on the far side. Checked by Frank Mahavlich. Into the far corner and thrown to the near corner by Coral. Here's Dennis Hull poking it back into the near corner to the far side. And Coral trying to center it. Goes behind the net. Bounces off the net. Comes into the near corner. And off the near board. Back to Jarrett. Jarrett winding a shot. And it's wide to the right side. Makita trying to tip in, but he missed. Now Magnuson off the far board. Magnuson, his pass deflected to Makita. Gets the shot away, but it's deflected up in the air. Down in front of Magnuson and poked out to center ice. and Frank Mahovlich one-on-one. He's got Jarrett to beat. Mahovlich with a shot and a save by Esposito into the near corner. And back come the Blackhawks, led by Nikita, 3-on-3. Nikita to the blue line. Nikita moving to the slot, dropping into Coral. Coral is checked from both sides, and it's off the side of the net. Now Dennis Hull takes for him. It's stolen away by Beliveau. Less than 2 minutes to play in regulation time. Possession to the Canadiens. Up to center ice. And Jerry Pinder waiting. The long slap shot is deflected by J.C. Tremblay into the far corner, and Tremblay recovers and throws it around the near board of the Canadiens. Out to center ice. Chico Mackey digs for it, but Rajon Houle has it on the right wing. Rajon Houle moving into the slot, a shot and a save, and no rebound. Poked away by Stapleton. And Stapleton off the near board. Leads it ahead to center ice to Dennis Hull, to the center line, and Chico Mackey at the blue line on the left wing. Chico Mackey leading into the slot and deflected off of Ferguson. He pokes it into the far corner, and Pinder tries to take it away, but it's taken by Chico Mackey. Centered in front. Dennis Hull couldn't get a shot away, and Stapleton pokes out and it's out to center ice and picked up by Bill White. 1 minute and 15 seconds left in regulation play. Hawk zone and Stapleton. Far side, Bill White out to center ice. Leading on the left wing to Bobby Hull. Bobby Hull can't control the long pass. And off the near board and dumped back to center ice. All the way down into the Chicago zone. And picked up by Bill White. Off the far board with less than a minute in regulation time. Bobby Hull at center ice. Leading to Chico Mackey over the blue line. On the right wing to Pinder. And Pinder centering. Broken up by LaPerriere. And behind the net. LaPerriere has the puck and he bangs it off the near board. Kept in by Stapleton. Stapleton with a shot deflected away before it got to the goaltender. Taken by Pete Mahovlich. And deflected off the skate of Bill White toward an open net with Esposito already gone. Stapleton behind the net. Slips, falls down. 32 seconds left in regulation play. The Hawks net is empty. Stapleton coming out of his own zone to center ice and led to Bobby Hull at the blue line. Stolen away by LaPerriere. Taken by Cournoyer. A long shot is off the mark of the open net and picked up by Bill White into the near corner. Bill White digging for it off the near board to Bobby Hull. Bobby Hull to Nikita at center ice. Nikita to the blue line. Winding, taking the slap shot, leading in front, and Kit Martin couldn't get his shot away. 5 seconds left. 4, 3, 2, 1. Jimmy Pappin a long shot, and there it is. That's all she wrote. The Montreal Canadiens had defeated the Chicago Blackhawks and are the 1971 Stanley Cup champions. They are absolutely wild. They have ganged their goaltender, Ken Dryden, as well they should. All the players on the Canadian bench swarming around their goaltender and now around their coach, Al MacNeil, as the dejected and disappointed Chicago Blackhawks, with heads hanging, are getting in position to line up for the traditional handshake. And here it comes. Whitey Stapleton, Jerry Pinder, Chico Mackey, Danny O'Shea, Bill White, Dennis Hull, Bobby Hull, Pip Martin, Doug Jarrett, Jim Pappin, Lou Angani, Keith Magnuson, Cliff Coral, Paul Schmier, and Ken Brown, the Chicago Blackhawk players who fought so diligently throughout this season and came up against the Montreal Canadiens, who would not be denied, and win the Stanley Cup championship from Chicago 4 games to 3. So there's the end of this Stanley Cup game. With the final score, the Montreal Canadiens 4, the Chicago Blackhawks. The score is 3-2. And we'll be back in just a moment. And now the traditional ceremony, ladies and gentlemen. The presentation of the Stanley Cup to the world champions of hockey, the Montreal Canadiens. The president of the National Hockey League, Mr. Clarence Campbell, presenting the cup to the captain of the Canadiens, John Beliveau, while all of the players stand around and congratulate each other. That is, the Canadian players. The Chicago Blackhawks, after the traditional handshake to the victors, have retired to their dressing room. Well, Harvey, a good deal of heartbreak on the part of the Chicago Blackhawk players, coaches, trainers, the Blackhawk family, and Blackhawk fans all over the land. But here is Jean Beliveau skating the cup through the center ice position and lifting it high and Something that is very enjoyable and sportsmanlike are these Chicago Blackhawk fans who are standing and applauding the world champion Montreal Canadiens. It's a tough lump to swallow, Harvey.
Well, it's always tough when you lose, but it was a great season, Lloyd. Both teams battled. We have to give the Canadiens credit. The Hawks took a 2-0 lead. The Canadiens got a couple lucky bounces in the second period, tied the game up. And in the third period, Henri Richard jumping over the boards on a changing of players on the fly, got the pass from Houle and broke in past Keith Magus, came and made a good move on Tony Esposito. And that's all she wrote in the season, that the Canadiens held off as the Hawks really put the pressure on in the last period, but the teams were tired. They gave everything they had. It was a fantastic year, a great year for the Blackhawks. It's a shame that one of these teams had to lose here tonight, and the Canadiens came back winning game number 6 in Montreal. They were trailing 3-2. They came back in the third period, and here this evening, coming from behind from 2 goals on Chicago ice and defeating us 3-2 to win the Stanley Cup.
All right, I was a little busy at the time. I didn't get the shots on goal in the third period or the totals, Harvey.
Well, it was a little difficult for me. I believe the Canadiens had 5 shots on goal in the final period for a total of 20. The Blackhawks had 12 for a total of 33. We outshot them 33-20, but they got the ones in the net that counted.
Okay, then here is we'll be back with the recap, and we'll replay the highlights of the game for you right after this. So now here's the scoring recap on the game for you. It was opened at 19-12 of the first period by the Chicago Blackhawks' Dennis Hull. It was a power play goal assisting Bobby Hull and Cliff Coral. The first period ended that way, 1-0 Chicago. The Hawks had 12 shots on goal. Montreal had 6. In the second period at 7:33, Danny O'Shea of Chicago made it 2-0 Hawks. He was assisted by Martin. And then at 14-18, Jacques Lemaire scored for Montreal, assisted by LaPerriere to make it 2-1 Hawks. At 18-20, the tying goal in the game scored by Henri Richard, assisted by Lemaire. Shots on goal in the second period for Montreal, 9 for a 2-period total of 15. For Chicago, 9, a 2-period total of 21. And then into the third period, the big one, the winner, and it was scored by Henri Richard at 2:34. He was assisted by Réjean Houle and Lapointe. Shots on goal in the third period for Montreal, 5, and a game total of 20. Chicago had 12 for a game total of 33. But the big one was won by the Montreal Canadiens. They are the 1971 Stanley Cup champions, defeating the Blackhawks 4-3. And now, let's go back and replay some of the highlights. And the first highlight came when the Chicago Blackhawks scored late in the first period. 55 seconds left to go in the period. Coral in the blue line. Back to Bobby Hull. Another slap shot, and it's wide. Dennis Hull, a shot to the goal. Deflected off to the left wing. Dennis Hull was there. He took that powerful shot of his. He swept it at the Montreal net. It looked like it may have been deflected off a defenseman, but Dennis Hull, I believe, will be credited with the goal. And most important of all, the Blackhawks have the first goal and the lead, 1-0. And it remained that way, 1-0 in favor of the Blackhawks until 7:33 of the second period when Danny O'Shea made it 2-0. Control of the puck, it goes to the foul board. Here's Gerald with a turnaround shot, deflected to the backboard on the left side. Martin pokes it out in front. O'Shea, a shot to go! Onto the stick of O'Shea. He shot once, it came right back to him. He shot again, and it just skidded along the ice and hit the lower right-hand corner of the net. And the Blackhawks lead the Montreal Canadiens us 5 seconds for station identification.
This is WMAQ Chicago, the home of Kurt Russell from 6 to 10 every morning.
And we'll be back with more highlights for you right after this. So continuing our replay of the scoring highlights with the Chicago Blackhawks leading by a score of 2-0. It went to 14-18 of the second period. And Lemaire carries it out. Moving down the near side of the rink, he skates to the blue line, to the center line. Lemaire winding a long shot and a goal! Jacques Lemaire from about 10 feet outside the Chicago Blackhawk blue line. Wound up, and he hit a sizzling slap shot that went by Tony Esposito, and the score is now Chicago 2 and Montreal 1. And the Canadian attack continued relentless, trailing by a score of 2-1. They then tied it up at 18:20 of the second period. The draw to the Blackhawks, Nesterenko being checked by Lemaire. Nesterenko throws it behind the net. It's off the side of the cage, found in front, a shot and a goal! Got that puck as it deflected off the side of the net, and he threw it to Henri Richard, who was wide open in front of the net. Richard poked it past Esposito, and this hockey game is all tied up 2-2. And then perhaps the biggest goal of the year for the Montreal Canadiens came in the third period. It was the winner, Henri Richard, at 2:34. Still in the Canadian zone. Dumped out to the Canadian blue line to Rajon Houle. Leading to Henri Richard on the left wing. Henri Richard coming out in front. A shot and a goal! Henri Richard was wide open at the Hawk blue line. He came in on the left wing past Magnuson. He moved in front of the net after drawing Esposito over, and he poked it home. And the Montreal Canadiens have the lead over the Chicago Blackhawks 3-2. And that's the way the Blackhawks finished their season, with the Canadiens winning the Stanley Cup competition. 4-3. The final game score 3-2 in favor of the Canadiens. And we'll be back to finish our hockey season for you in just a moment. Well, Harvey Wittenberg, just about 4 months from now, the Blackhawks will be back at it. That's one good and beautiful thing about this fine world of sports that you and I love so much. There's always an upcoming season and a whole batch of new thrills.
That's true. It was a great season, Lloyd. The Blackhawks gave it everything they had, and it came right down to the final period of hockey, and one goal was the difference. The fans couldn't ask for a greater effort by either club, and the Canadiens came back, and we have to give them credit. And the only thing that remains now for the hockey season is to name the winner of the Conn Smythe Trophy, the most valuable player in the Stanley Cup playoffs, and there's quite a few to pick from. First name comes to mind for the Canadiens. I'd have to say Ken Dryden. For our Blackhawks, you have Tony Esposito and Bill White, who just were fantastic along. It was a great team effort all the way. The Blackhawks came on. They were down against the Rangers and then came on strong and won that in the 7th game. And we had a great opportunity up in Montreal on Sunday afternoon, and the Canadiens fought back again. So you've got to give them credit. They got a few lucky bounces, but that's what makes the game of hockey it is. And we want to give our hats off to all the Blackhawk players. Coach Billy Reay and General Manager Yvan and the Wirtz family did an outstanding job of giving the Chicago Blackhawk team and the Blackhawk fans the winner this season. It was a great season. We're sorry we couldn't win it all, but our hats are off to the Canadiens, who are the world champions tonight.
And Harvey Wittenberg, I thank you very much. Look forward to working with you again next season.
Hope so, Lloyd. It's been a pleasure, and have a real good summer.
Will do. The next home Hawk game will be sometime in September. Tune in, WMAQ 670 at 8:15, whenever it is, for the Hawk First Period Show. Our thanks to our producer, Scott Labonta, and our engineers, John Hoffman and Dan Hozak. This game has been brought to you by the crowd pleaser, Meisterbrow, served and enjoyed in more Chicago homes than any other beer brewed anywhere. Your friendly Chicagoland Shell Oil dealers and your Pontiac dealers, the Big Car Boys. This program has been presented through the courtesy of Arthur M. Wirtz and the Chicago Blackhawks. This has been a Blackhawk Properties Incorporated production. James M. Fitzgerald, executive producer. The final score, once again, the Montreal Canadiens 3, the Chicago Blackhawks 2. The Canadiens win the Stanley Cup of 1971 over Chicago, 4-3. This is Lloyd Pettit reporting, along with Harvey Wittenberg. This has been a presentation of WMAQ Sports.